The semi-final drama continues today, and for the two players who fell behind on day one, it is all or nothing today. Can they fight back and take the matches to tie-breaks? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are 1 day away from the Skilling Open final. Welcome to the Champions Chess Tour.
Welcome to my humble abode.
This time I'll be playing from Moscow, but here's where I live.
Hi, this is Gujarati. There are time differences, so I have to change my sleep schedule accordingly.
This is my usual work spot, power.
So this is my desk.
You need a very good mouse.
There's the old mouse I use for all the other tournaments.
It can be a little bit dark in here.
Some of the medals. I love online chess because I can play from the comfort of my home. Having Indian food, lots of stuff.
For winning the Skilling Open is not enough. I need some more.
Skilling Open is the very first tournament in the Champions Chess Tour. We are done with preliminaries, we're done with quarterfinals, and we are done with day one of semifinals. Today we will find out what two players take the tickets to the final. And to take us through the drama that will be happening today, we do have Women's Grandmaster Houska and Grandmaster David Howell. And David, for the two players who have to get back today to get those wins, do you think we will see blood on the chessboard today?
I'm hoping for it, Kaya. I'm so excited. The two players who did lose yesterday, Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura, they are fighters. They'll be throwing everything at their opponents to try and get back into this match.
And Ivanka, in the quarterfinals, we did see some great comebacks. We did get those tie breaks. Who do you think has the best chance among the two players behind to get that tie break today?
Well, you said it. In the quarterfinals, we saw something magical. 3 of the quarterfinalists made an amazing comeback to qualify for the semi-finals. The players in question, Hikaru Nakamura and Nepomniachtchi, can do it. And in fact, Twitter is behind them. We have a tweet from John Brazel who says, "I'll be rooting for Hikaru and Nepomniachtchi during today's Skilling Open because more chess is better than less chess." And that's not just me saying that, it's science. And do remember that if you do want to join in the conversation and the fun, please tweet us using the hashtag #ChessTamps.
And David, I guess the players behind Hikaru Nakamura and Nepomniachtchi, they need all the great energy they can get from social media and everywhere today, because it must be very hard and very exhausting to have to fight back against great chess players.
No, that's right. Remember, it's 4 games as well today, potentially, or even more if the matches go to tie-break. So the players, they'll definitely need that energy. They'll need much more energy than yesterday, where they did struggle a bit towards the end. I just can't wait.
All right. Well, Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, was the favourite before the semi-final against Nepomniachtchi. And the Russian, he got off to a devastating start. Oh, and look at the bar.
He's just shuffled his queen across. He's defending his knight right now. But maybe this is the move that Nepomniachtchi has missed, cutting the coordination between his queen and knight. Nepomniachtchi's face, I think he's slowly starting to realise what he's done. He's just been caught unaware.
It was the worst thinkable start to the semi-final for Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen.
I think queen b8 is a little bit weird comparing to queen c7, but I would like to see queen c7 at the board, not queen b8. Queen b8 is clearly losing because of d6.
But the Russian got several chances to strike back.
Nepomniachtchi playing very accurately so far. Okay, not sure about that last move.
The computer hates it.
Yeah, that's the thing. The one move's the difference.
And when Carlsen ran into problems with the internet connection, Nepomniachtchi had great chances for a win in Game 3.
I think the pressure's getting to him. He's forgetting that his most important pawn is that pawn on the left there. Now,
the computer hates that move.
I think Nepomniachtchi's blown it.
He has blown it.
I would say he was the victim of himself. You know, he was the one who took the bad decisions.
I kind of feel relief right now because in the first game I returned the favor from the group stage when Magnus mixed up the square for his queen.
With a win in Game 1 and draws in the rest of the games, Carlsen ended up as winner of the first semi-final match.
It was quite similar to the first day of the match with Anish, actually, and that I was mainly struggling.
Well, actually, Magnus Carlsen here, in that interview, he seemed kind of low on energy, even if he did win, Jovanka. What do you expect from the world champion today?
Well, the world champion is a tough customer. He is one of the strongest players around. He is the benchmark. And I do think that this tweet by Howard Staunton really sums it up beautifully. It says, Mr. Carlsen is a terrible antagonist. Once he has obtained a superiority of force, no matter how small the advantage, he seldom gives his opponent a moment's rest till the game is past all surgery. And there you go. There you have it. He is magnificent.
And it also, for Nepomniachtchi yesterday, it wasn't all about Magnus playing good chess. Also, he had these small blunders all the time that ruined it for him in winning positions. Do you think he is able to forget about that and come back strong today, David?
He needs to forget. He also needs to forget who he's playing. Yes, he's playing one of the best defensive players of all time, Magnus Carlsen. But I think Nepomniachtchi, against anyone in the world, he would have backed himself to win that game. I think on any other day, he might have won that game. He just needs to forget. He'll get his chances today. He just needs to take them when they come.
What do you expect from these first games, Jovanka, knowing that Nepomniachtchi, he needs to win some games?
Yeah, absolutely. He must win. So he has to come out there swinging, fighting, doing whatever he can, being the Russian bear. He has to scare Magnus.
And Magnus, he is not known, even if he is in the lead, he's not known for going for those draws. Do you think he also wants to show off some good chess today, David?
Definitely. I mean, he's perfected the art form of winning without being at his best. But he knows that before the finals, he needs to show the world that he is still kind of the king of online chess. Magnus Carlsen, not at his best so far. Maybe he's saving it for the critical moment. Either way, he's going to need to play better than yesterday.
All right. Well, in the other semi-final, Hikaru Nakamura was the big favorite against Wesley So in the All-American battle between the two. But Nakamura, he got off to, well, not the best start.
We can see Nakamura, we talked about his faces, but once he starts to exhale a lot, breathe out a lot, he knows it's all over.
With a win in Game 2 against Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So got off to a great start in the semi-finals.
I feel very good today, but at the same time, I think Hikaru played subpar today. I'm sure tomorrow he'll play 2 times harder. I'm going to have a sleepless night.
Nakamura was never able to get back, and with the rest of the games ending in draws, So was the winner of Day 1.
Good feeling to be in the lead, but every match is different. Tomorrow, I'll try to play solidly, of course. I mean, 4 draws is more than enough. Try to not run into any problems with the black pieces, especially in the opening, and hopefully be able to hang on.
I mean, I thought the final game actually it was very close to winning for me, but unfortunately it was by 1 move. I can't checkmate him on the H file, so it was a little bit unfortunate, but it's only 1 day, so we play again tomorrow.
Well, if one player will be able to get back, it is Hikaru Nakamura. He seems like such a cool and confident guy.
Yeah, he is. He is, after all, the king of online chess, one of the best blitz players around. And I definitely think that he has to come out there, be very aggressive. Wesley So is one of the most pragmatic players that is out there. So I'm expecting Wesley to be a little bit more defensive and just hold the fort down.
All right. Well, we are done with the first days of semi-final. It's all or nothing today, the decisive day of the semi-finals. Now let's take a look at the standings. And after the quarterfinals, we did see Magnus Carlsen, Nepomniachtchi, Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura go through to the semi-finals. Magnus Carlsen is leading by 1 point against Nepomniachtchi after the first day, and so is Wesley So 1-0 up against Hikaru Nakamura after day 1. And that means that Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura has to win today's 4 games match. That means they need to beat Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So within 4 games if they want to take it to tiebreaks. And hopefully, David, we will have tiebreaks. And what does that mean?
That's right. So tie breaks, the times will be slashed on the clock. Each player will just have 5 minutes for each blitz game. It's the best of 2 blitz games. 5 minutes on the clock plus 3 seconds after every move. If the 2 blitz games, if it's 1-1 at the end of those, we will see Armageddon chess. White will have 5 minutes, Black will have 4 minutes, but White has to win. Otherwise, he will be knocked out. The time will be slashed. It will be so exciting to watch. We've seen that before.
Oh, we definitely hope for tiebreaks, Jovanka.
Yeah, we absolutely do. It's the best thing.
It is the best thing. Okay, well, Wesley So, he is leading the match against Hikaru Nakamura, but he is expecting some great chess and some blood from Hikaru Nakamura today.
I think Hikaru played subpar today, so I'm sure tomorrow he'll play 2 times harder. So I'm going to have a sleepless night. But yeah, I'm sure he'll bounce back tomorrow. I'm sure he'll play much better. But today's just not his day. Tomorrow, try to play solidly, of course. I mean, 4 draws is more than enough. Try to not run into any problems with the black pieces, especially in the opening, and hopefully be able to hang on. If I played like I did today, I'm pretty confident, but we'll see. I've had bad days and I've had good days also.
You know, you just come back, play, and luckily it's a best of 2 and not a best of 1. I mean, I just try to play good chess and see what happens. And if I play good chess, I think there will be opportunities, and whether I can capitalize on them or not is really the question. But, you know, we'll see.
Well, actually, David, Hikaru Nakamura almost looking like a movie star in his office, his online chess office there, and he just seems full of confidence. I almost feel that he's very capable of taking back the match today.
Definitely, if he can do it, anyone can. I also want to know what's in that fridge behind him.
I know.
Maybe full of energy drinks, full of magical treats to help give him that energy that he needs today. He's up against one of the most solid, one of the coolest customers out there, though, Wesley So. Hikaru, he knew to be at his best, but he's done it before. He's come back before.
He has come back before. And Jovanka, what sort of openings and what do you expect from Hikaru today, knowing he has to win?
He is going to go for very committal openings. I think he will go aggressively from the get-go, and I will think that Wesley So, in response, will perhaps tighten himself up into a little ball and just defend until he's given the opportunity to counterattack.
All right. Well, Magnus Carlsen, he said he felt it was all about surviving yesterday. He definitely did survive. Now let's hear what it's all about today for Magnus Carlsen.
I guess I'll try to prepare better in the openings. As you could see, in the first game was well prepared, and then he made a mistake early on, and I won quite easily. But in the others, especially in the third game, I didn't really get what I want. So I'll have to cook up something new there. But overall, like, I'm pretty happy to have survived, and I feel like in these matches, like, if you can survive your worst day, you're probably going to be fine overall.
I think last year said that the most difficult in chess is to win a winning position. So that's something I surely need to master before tomorrow's match. I need some extra energy, extra motivation for a comeback. Anyway, this is best of 2. So one match you may lose, but second you get a win. Yeah, so that's the rules are very simple.
Well, Nepomniachtchi, do you believe he's capable of striking back today, David?
I think he can. In the past, he has been Magnus Carlsen's kryptonite. He has beaten Magnus Carlsen, especially in their over-the-board encounters. He just needs to transfer that form into online chess.
Semi-finals day 2 are about to start. 2 of these players will be heading to the Skilling Open final starting tomorrow. But Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura has to fight back if they want to take the semi-finals to tiebreaks. And we're so excited that day 2 of semi-finals is soon starting. The first match is between Magnus Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi. And David, there is no doubt Nepomniachtchi is capable of beating Magnus Carlsen.
That's right. He showed it yesterday. He's capable of building up those winning positions. He just needs that killer instinct. He needs to finish off those games. We see their head-to-head scores there as well. In classical chess, over-the-board chess, Nepomniachtchi is dominant with 5 wins to 1. But in rapid games, Magnus Carlsen is the one in the ascendancy. Nepomniachtchi needs to turn that around.
And the other match, the one we will follow the first game for, is between Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. And Jovanka, Nakamura, well, he is the online champion.
He is the online champion, and you can actually see it there by looking at their rapid scores. Wesley So only has 9 victories to Hikaru Nakamura's 16. So definitely the statistics are in Hikaru's favour.
The all-American battle between Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura. And we see the 4 players in the semi-finals. One of those players and one of the other players will be heading to the final. And here we are. These are live webcams of the players now sitting, waiting, and Wesley So, the last one to come in here, David. Do you think he's ready and happy and going to fight today to get that final?
Yeah, Wesley So, he looks fresh. He said he might have a sleepless night thinking about the results, but I think that was tongue-in-cheek. He knows that today is going to be a long, long day for him. He knows he needs to be full of energy. And there we see the moves being played very fast on the board. Wesley So with the white pieces. He's pushed his king's pawn forward on the first turn. We see a very quick opening moves here. This opening is called the Spanish opening. It normally signifies that Wesley So, as white, he's happy to be solid. And Nakamura, in return, he's played something I've never seen him play before. He's just pushed a pawn there on the right side of the board. Normally, he would develop his knight instead. He's played something to try and surprise his opponent. It's something a bit rare. He's going to try and throw Wesley So out of his comfort zone at this early stage. I like what Hikaru Nakamura is doing. It shows that he's out for blood.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very uncommon response to develop the pawns on that right-hand side so early on, but it has been seen before, and so far the players are all following the theory.
We already see on our beloved bar, it is slightly on White's side, Wesley So's side. Should we pay attention to it this early in the game?
That's right, Kaya. So the bar below the players, the green bar, we will see it zooming right, zooming left throughout the game. But at the moment, when it says something like 0.7, that means the game's roughly in the balance. It's slightly in White's favour, but it's still very early days. A lot of play left here, and we see White has had to retreat his bishop there. White has done something that I recommend everyone at home doing. He's castled his king, which means he's pushed his king to the right side of the board, keeping it nice and safe for later. Hikaru Nakamura countering in the centre. We've seen a trade of pawns in the centre. This is all quite well-known stuff, but maybe because it is a surprise, Hikaru Nakamura, he studied it this morning. It might be less familiar for Wesley So.
All right. Well, we can't stress enough that it is all in Hikaru Nakamura's shoulders to win today. He is under after yesterday. Wesley So won day one, and Hikaru Nakamura, he definitely needs at least one win today to take it to tiebreaks.
Yes, he does. He needs to win the match, and there's 4 games in that match, we have to remember. So, yeah, everything to play for, and it's certainly... The game is actually still very much mainstream. It's all been played before, but it's kind of a little bit off-putting how quickly Wesley is playing and how it's now Hikaru that is pausing for thought. And he's doing, David, you noticed it before, he was looking up to the left.
That's right. So Hikaru, when he looks up to the corner, it just means he's trying to recall what he's studied before. He's just trying to remember. It's always difficult, especially as we get a bit older in chess terms. It's not easy to remember what we've studied. We see White's last move. He's moved his rook across. We can see that on the bottom right-hand corner with the yellow squares that have been highlighted. That's the last move been played. White's just shifted his rook across one square, attacking the black king. Rooks love these open lines. Black's king is forgotten to castle. It's still in the middle of the board. That king is a bit weak, so black needs to decide, do I block? Maybe I can block with the bishop. Maybe I can block with the knight retreating. Or a move that nobody likes to play, do you move the king? There's 3 ways to deal with the check. You have to block, you have to run away, or you have to capture the attacking piece. Instead, he's decided to block with his bishop. After a bit of thinking there, Nakamura trying to surprise his opponent at this early stage, but maybe he's the one who's less familiar, it turns out. Wesley So looking very confident at this early stage. I like White's position.
I certainly like White's position as well. But we have to stress, though, if the black king manages to castle, which is to get into safety, then black should be standing okay. White has to run with the momentum, has to start developing the pieces, especially on the left-hand side of the board, and has to start tickling black and causing some problems.
That's right, Jovanka mentioned it, those White's pieces there at the bottom left side, they're still at home, they still haven't moved. You need to use all of your pieces in the early stage of the game. You need to bring them towards the centre. There we see White has jumped forward with his bishop. He's actually eyeing up the black queen now with that bishop. The black queen is attacked along that bishop's diagonal. Black will move the queen now, most likely. A very nice move there from Wesley So. It's worth noting as well that White's bishop is protected by a knight. That black queen cannot capture that bishop right now. Hikaru Nakamura Just trying to shake it off a bit.
Yeah.
Looks like he's still trying to warm up, get in the zone. It's quite early, I think, in the US. It's still very early in the morning, so maybe he's just woken up not long ago. Maybe he's going to take him a while to get into this match.
Yeah, and Wesley So rattling out the moves. So although that this was a surprise from Hikaru, completely unexpected, it does seem like Wesley knows exactly what to do, which is a little bit off-putting.
That's right, and I really like what Wesley So is doing. If we bring up the board, we can see his threat, his next move. He's moved his knight forward. He wants to jump further forward with his knight. He wants to jump in one more time and attack the black queen. That knight going on a bit of a journey, but if you can improve your pieces like this, if you see a very nice square for your pieces, it's often worth investing 2 or 3 moves to make that happen. If Wesley gets this one move, if he gets his knight into the black position, this knight, it's on a square that we call an outpost. It cannot be attacked by a black pawn. It looks like Hikaru, he's actually ignoring that potential threat. He's just moved his bishop one more time, creating a bit of an awkward tension along this diagonal, pinning this white knight. That a pin means that the knight cannot move now. White's knight cannot move on this square, otherwise the white queen will be attacked. So both sides being very aggressive at this early stage.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And I really like Wesley So answer to that. He has pushed his pawn on the right-hand side, and you can see that pawn is asking a question to the bishop. What are you going to do? And I love questions like that.
That's right. So black's bishop's now attacked by a pawn. The bishop has to either run away or jump forward and capture that white knight. Black cannot afford to give up his bishop for a pawn. That's not a good trade. So Hikaru Nakamura, does he retreat or does he capture the white knight? A very tense moment, but Hikaru slightly shaking his head. I think he's just shocked by Wesley's speed at this early stage. Wesley's so confident in the opening.
And we know that Hikaru Nakamura is going for wins in these games. Can we say by the opening here if Wesley So is actually trying to get a win here, or if he's just playing safe for that draw?
He's not playing safe for that draw, that's for sure. He's just simply developing his pieces. So he has responded in a quite nice
and he's smiling.
Wow, I'm so shocked at Black's last move.
And look at the bar.
We see the bar jump as well. I'm not surprised. If we bring up the board, we can see that Black's just lost 2 moves. He's just given up. He's moved his bishop forward, then he's moved it straight back. If we join the position 2 moves ago, Black moved his bishop. He moved his bishop forward along the diagonal to this square. Wesley So attacked that bishop. Now he's just gone back. Why did he jump forward if he had to retreat in the first place? And we see just above the board on the right-hand side there, we see Stockfish's evaluation of the position. Stockfish is the computer program. It thinks that White has 3 moves to give a huge advantage, and Wesley has done that. Wesley So has got a very big advantage now. His rook nicely in the centre of the board. Nakamura, he just lost 2 moves. He just gave Wesley 2 moves for free.
Yes, for sure, absolutely. That didn't make any sense whatsoever. And yes, oh dear. Not a great start for Hikaru Nakamura, and that would disappoint some of his fans if he were to leave the competition, because we do have a tweet from Lars who says, "Cheers from Namibia, I'm rooting for Hikaru." And then he compliments us by saying, "Great broadcasting to us." Thank you very much, Lars.
Yes, so nice to hear. All right, hashtag chess champs. I think the players today need to get that energy from social media. So great for Hikaru. We know he has a lot of fans out there.
That's right. Both players have a lot of fans. This all-American battle. We have Nakamura, a former US champion. I think 5 or 6 times he's won that. And Wesley So, the new US champion, the 2nd time he's won the title. Both players, I'm a fan of them both. They both have huge support networks, and I'd love to hear more from those support. Meanwhile, the position, though, Wesley So, we saw him smiling. He knows he's in the driver's seat.
Oh, and glasses on.
Glasses on. He means business.
He means business.
But it's absolutely wonderful for Wesley, like psychologically as well, that after he put the question to that bishop earlier on, that Hikaru doubted himself and retreated the bishop and just gave him 2 free moves. Unbelievable.
That's right. And Hikaru, we hear with the little ping, that's whenever a move is being made. Hikaru, he's shaking his head. His last move was to bring his black rook towards the centre. That rook, though, is very passive. It is just blocked by a pawn. It's a very defensive move. Nakamura, he knows it's all gone wrong. Wesley So has very nice control of the centre. I especially like that white rook in the middle of the board. Very powerful. It's looking like Wesley So all he needs to do now is activate that rook on the bottom left side of the board. If he can activate that last rook, bring all of his pieces towards the center, Hikaru Nakamura is going to be in big, big trouble.
So is that what we're looking for from Wesley as he's thinking now to move his queen so that also that rook can get out of that corner?
Exactly. That's exactly what he needs to do. He needs to involve all his pieces into the attack. And once he does that, then the play starts to flow very naturally. And once you've pinpointed your weak point that you're going to really put the pressure on, is even better. And I think it will be that pawn that is all by itself, that doesn't have any pawn support in the center. So I would be targeting there.
That's right. If we bring up the board, I think Wesley So... OK, he does push a pawn at the edge there. He pushes a pawn on the H line. We call that pawn Harry.
Harry the H-pawn is on a mission.
Oh, wow. Right. I'm loving this, David. Absolutely fantastic. Because Wesley, I did predict that he would play it very safely, but he has been provoked, and Wesley is now playing for an attack. He wants to soften up the protection around the Black King, and he's going for those pawns.
That's right. So we see that pawn has just moved. It's going to launch forward. It's going to be used as a battering ram just to explode everything, just to break Black's king shelter, essentially. Personally, I was expecting, as you mentioned, Kaya, just a move maybe with the queen, bring this rook into the game, target this weak pawn that Jovanka was mentioning earlier. But I love this move by Wesley. It shows that he's not scared. He's actually playing for the win. He's got the advantage. He's not going to let this one go. Without a fight. Hikaru definitely on the back foot. He's got to worry about what to do about his king. How do you defend the Black King once this pawn runs forward? Very aggressive move there from Wesley So.
Oh, and a bad start to the day for Hikaru Nakamura, who he knows in the back of his head or even in the front of his head, he needs to win games today, definitely not lose them.
Definitely not. A loss would be the most terrible thing, actually, because then he would be 1 point away from just being eliminated. Exactly. Because drawing the match is sufficient for Wesley So to go into the finals.
Yeah, and there we see, again, above the board, we see this computer evaluation, the stockfish evaluation. At the moment, OK, Wesley So has played the move recommended by the computer, giving White a 2-point advantage. That's equivalent to having 2 extra pawns, essentially. On the board, the material is level. Both sides have equal pawns, but White's pieces are so dominant that that just gives him a huge advantage. And we see that, again, the computer recommends just pushing a queen forward 1 square, just activating that queen, as Kaya mentioned, moving that queen forward, get that last rook into the game. Once Wesley activates that last rook, Hikaru's pieces, his weak king, his pawns, they're all going to start feeling very much under pressure. This is all going in White's favour. Wesley So impressive stuff so far. And he's playing so quickly.
He's playing very quickly. And we actually have a question from Twitter from Abdul Majid, who says, can you please tell us how to improve chess calculation skills and how to choose candidate moves for calculation? So very deep question there.
Yeah,
thank you.
I don't know if I even knew all the words there. Candidate moves.
Candidate moves just refers to the moves that you have available to you, because it can seem like you have a very, very long list. But in actual fact, there is a very nice rule that can help you, and that would be you first look at checks, and then you would look at captures, and then you would look at attacks. So and then once you've established that list, then you go through them. You get very, very, very methodical, and you go, I'm going to go there, there, there. And that's kind of the general rule. In other kind of positions, much more slower positions, I wouldn't suggest that you spend your time calculating. What would you do is, just like you suggested, just involving all your pieces. You kind of came up with this idea of moving the queen to connect the rooks. That is brilliant. You don't need to calculate for that. Just improve your pieces. It's only when the position is sharp and you have to captures and checks available on the board.
That's right. I completely agree with Jovanka. Even grandmasters do this. We look at the most forcing types of moves. And the reason we look at checks and captures are because if they work, then they can be very, very strong. They can decide the game in your favour. If they don't work, then, OK, then it's time to improve a piece. I like to talk to my pieces ever since I read a book. I read a book when I was young called The 7 Deadly Chess Sins by Jonathan Rowson, and it talked about the mistakes that we all make and the reasons behind those mistakes. Sometimes we forget to talk to our pieces. For example, here, Wesley So he's going to be talking to that rook on the bottom right, on the bottom left-hand side of the board. He's going to be saying, are you happy right now? That rook's going to say no, so he's going to improve it, even if it takes 2 or 3 moves.
All right. Well, I guess you have to be a little bit crazy to be great at chess.
Not just a little bit, Kaya.
Well, actually, as Wesley So is thinking, I know many people are interested in this. What would you guys recommend the best chess books for beginners?
The best chess books
Yeah.
for beginners?
If you can both choose one book, what would you sort of start reading?
Ladies first, Ivanka, while I try and think of an answer.
Well, okay, the best actual paperback book that I ever read, and it was when I was a child. I didn't really like to read chess books. There was one, though, that I was absolutely captivated by the drawings, and it's called Chess for Tigers.
Oh.
And it has all sorts of traps and tricks, and it had things like how to catch a heffalump, which is someone that's much stronger than you.
Heffalump, isn't that in Winnie the Pooh or something?
And then it had another chapter on how to catch bunnies. And they were the lower-rated players that were weaker than you. And so that's the only book I've ever read, like cover to cover as a child.
Really?
So absolutely recommend that. But
Chess for Tigers.
Chess for Tigers. But this is a paperback book. Nowadays, you can kind of get a lot more learning resources online, and these are better, actually.
Well, David, how about you?
Yeah, I remember reading a book called How to Beat Your Dad at Chess.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, it might sound like it's for the kids, but actually, I opened it up not long ago again, and it gives you all the possible checkmating patterns. I think even for more advanced players, even for older players, it's a great way to learn. And actually, I think Wesley So, he might be trying to use some of those checkmate patterns highlighted in that book.
And we have a queen move.
We do
My
have
suggestion.
a queen move.
Yay.
And it's working with the bishop along that diagonal. And you can see how he's trying to use teamwork to make the... I love that quote, David. I'm not going to let you forget it. To make the dream work.
That's right. That's right. So White's last move was to just advance the queen forward 2 squares. It might look very innocent right now, but once this white rook moves, this white rook could even threaten to sacrifice itself by giving a check or by taking a pawn. The whole idea is to line up this bishop and the queen against this weak pawn. This pawn is only defended by Black's king. For example, if Black plays a careless move here, if Black just moves a pawn, we see White would be able to give checkmate. The rook would sacrifice itself and the queen will jump the whole way up. And this Black king now is trapped. It has no safe squares. It cannot capture the queen, which is nicely defended by its own bishop. White is already threatening some huge attacks, and therefore we see in the game Black decides to push his rook up 1 square, defending this weakness. Black is up against it.
Wow.
Wesley just pushing a pawn there at the edge. He's stopping a knight from jumping forward to attack his queen. Very calm stuff by Wesley. He's been talking to that rook, though. That rook is going to join the action next move, double up with its friend, team up, and all of White's pieces are controlling the centre.
Teamwork is the dream work. That will be the next book that I buy, the Chess Rhymes by Jovanka and David. We have a lot of them now.
We better start writing.
We better do that. And this is certainly a position that will make Wesley So's supporters very happy. And we do have a tweet from Baz Green who says, supporting Wesley So as we prefer the more attacking style of play. #ChessChamps. And also, he says, watching with my 11-year-old son, Milo, a future world chess champion.
Ah, fantastic.
Hello, Milo.
Hi, Milo. All right, we will definitely follow Milo then.
We definitely will.
Great. All right. Well, it is Hikaru Nakamura thinking. He is under 10 minutes on the clock now. Not dramatic yet, but with the position he's in, I guess it can get there.
That's right. He will not have wanted to start this game so badly with Black. It's worth noting he didn't play the opening. He didn't kind of start the game as he normally does. Normally, he's extremely solid. He's extremely hard to beat. He relies on an opening called the Berlin Wall, which is just very, very hard to break down. But he knew that drawing this game is probably not enough. He needs to go for Wesley So. I just love Wesley's reaction. Hikaru is going for an early stage. He's saying, I'm not going to let you attack me. I'm the one going to be playing on the front foot. I'm going to put the pressure on you. And this early stage, Nakamura behind on the clock, struggling on the board with a very weak king.
Yeah.
And you can see his facial expressions. He's not happy at all right now.
Yeah, absolutely right there. I mean, I really dislike that Black king. It's got no pawn protection, and that is super worrying. And what also really worries me is the fact that if you take a look at the bishops on the board, they're different colours. One is on the dark squares, the other one is on the light squares, and that means that White can start attacking on those colour squares, and Black really can't defend those squares at all.
No, that's right. With those opposite colour bishops that Jovanka mentions, it always favours the attacking side. And that at the moment is Wesley So. Wesley is the one going to try and attack. In return, Hikaru has pushed his king towards the corner of the board. A very sensible move, tucking his king away there on a dark square, protected by his bishop potentially. But that won't change anything long term. It's just Wesley So's turn now to bring that rook into the game. We've mentioned it for so long, that rook, the bottom left-hand corner of the board. Once that rook enters the action, it's going to be very hard for Hikaru Nakamura to hold everything together. He's got so many weaknesses, his king, his pawns. Well, he's got weaknesses on both sides, the right flank and the left flank.
And he's down on time, so it's a kind of the whole shebang here.
That's right. I mean, he was the comeback king in the quarterfinals against Vachier-Lagrave. Hikaru Nakamura, he rode his luck in that one, but he did get there in the end. He's going to need to ride his luck a bit here today as well.
Yeah, and we have to remind everyone that this is a 4-game match. So the victor of those 4 games will go, well, either we'll put it to a tie-break or we'll go through to the finals if it's Wesley that wins it or draws.
So he only needs a draw in those 4 games. Hikaru Nakamura, he needs at least 1 win. It all comes down to what Wesley So does. And if Wesley So wins this game, then wow, Hikaru Nakamura needs to come back with a win in the next game or it's almost over.
Yeah. Wesley will be on the brink of victory, and it's very rare to see him crumble under the pressure, really. So Hikaru knows that he'll be completely up against it if he loses this first game. He needs to just dig deep, try and defend as best he can. Wesley, in the meantime, thinking for a couple of minutes here. I'm slightly surprised. I would have just brought my rook into the game and then only started to really think, calculate once all my pieces are centralized and in the action. We talked about calculation there earlier with Jovanka, and normally those checks, those captures that we always look for, they tend to work only once all your pieces are coordinated together. So I'm slightly surprised Wesley So is having a think here. Maybe he's just recomposing. He knows he's in control.
And he has played the queen and he lined up against the rook. But I think that queen has other sinister...
he shakes his head. Is he not happy with that move?
No, I think this is a great move. Although ideally I would have done what David did. I would have also been there, just picked up that rook and brought it along the same line as the rook. But this one I think is really sinister because this queen move is actually threatening to join in an attack along against the king. And I'm thinking if that queen can get to a square opposite the king on the right-hand side of the board, then she's going to be so good there. She's going to eat pawns and it's going to almost be game over, right?
That's right. If we bring up the board, we can see Wesley So his plan over the next 2 moves. He's going to try his last move, bring the queen across, just shuffling across 1 square. That queen is headed for new, very just great pastures, really. Trying to think of a word to describe. I mean, that queen is going to be so powerful if she reaches opposite the black king.
And once she gets there, she's not going to turn back, let's face it.
Exactly. That queen, once she penetrates the black territory, once she enters the black camp, it's going to be very hard to guard against. And also, just if Wesley So gets the time to take a timeout, to spend an extra move, these 3 pieces together, the 2 rooks and the queen on the same line, that's like an unstoppable force.
Yeah. 3 of them in the same line.
Exactly.
I mean, you always cheer for, or you're always happy when you see one player get 2 of them in the same line. But 3 of them.
3 is just magical, you know, there's so much pressure.
And look at Wesley. He seems like he's giggling.
He does have cats. Maybe one of the cats has entered the room just to support him.
Maybe Zanzibar.
Zanzibar, yes. We got to know Zanzibar, the cat, which he loves a lot. And he is just... he's just in a very good position here in the very first game. And Hikaru Nakamura has been thinking for some time now. He is soon going under 6 minutes on the clock as he is fighting to survive in this game. Is there any chance he can still win this?
He needs
a blunder, probably.
Possibly.
He needs a blunder, or he needs Wesley to start making some bad decisions. So, but at the minute, it's looking very, very, very good for Wesley.
Yeah, and then we see the stockfish evaluation as well above the board. Hikaru's problem is here that, okay, he's found one of the best moves. The problem is, no matter what he plays, Wesley's advantage is guaranteed. And more importantly than that, it's just very easy for White to play. White has many possible moves. We can see there that the computer recommends pushing a pawn in the center of the board. He can also just improve his bishop. He can improve his rook. Just very calm moves, and they all give White a big advantage. It's not just about the material. It's not about what pawns and pieces are on the board. It's also about which position is easier to play. If White's plans are more simple and more straightforward, then Wesley can play them quickly. And Nakamura will be the one burning time on the clock, having to react. Yeah, I think everything is in Wesley's favour right now. But he is spoilt for choice, and that might be the only thing that makes him pause.
All right, well, Wesley So is thinking in this first game of the day, semi-final match 2, and he won day 1, so he should feel very comfortable here. All right, what are we expecting from him?
Oh, and he's really pushing for it. The pawn has advanced and is now attacking the knight and the pawn. And the great thing is, because of the rook and the queen lined up against that pawn, then black cannot actually capture that pawn because of...
That's right. So if White's last move was to push the pawn forward, attacking this knight, attacking this pawn. As Ivanka mentioned, this pawn cannot be captured now. If black takes this pawn, this would be a huge mistake, a huge blunder. We see the queen and rook lined up. White would just capture a rook, winning the black queen. This rook is defended by White's own queen. Wesley So taking advantage of this. Black's knight has been forced to retreat to the edge of the board. That's the most depressing sight in chess, when a knight has to retreat. And Wesley So just snaps a pawn off. He's winning now. This pawn is attacking the black rook. This rook has to just step across. Look how strong this pawn is. If White can maintain this pawn, then White will be completely in control. I would just suggest dropping the bishop forward 1 square, kind of over-protecting this pawn. That pawn is a thorn in Black's side. Yeah,
just look at how that pawn is just cramping the whole of Black army. Look at it. The pawn is worth 1 point, and the rook is worth 5. Another rook is worth another 5. So that's 1 versus 10. And then you add the knight in there, because that knight can't move either. So suddenly that white 1 pawn is holding all these huge pieces, and yeah, it's just a terrible, terrible game. And he's done it. He's done it. He has moved his bishop to protect that very important pawn. And wow, I think we are going to see the game, and not that far off. Yeah.
Black is almost paralysed. That 1 pawn, that 1 white pawn deep inside his camp. Like you said, Jovanka, is completely dominating the whole of the Black army. Yeah. Black is just having to wait and hope that White can't break through. But all of Black's pieces, I mean, they're stuck. They're all on his beginning ranks, his first ranks. Yeah, I think White is just going to finally improve that rook on the bottom left.
Well, he's being forced to now, because Hikaru has taken a pawn with the bishop, and now the rook must move. But note how the rook actually moves to another open line. So Wesley So really wants to use all his rooks into the game, and what he wants to do is he wants to bulldoze those rooks that are in the way of that very, very important pawn. And yeah, impressive stuff. And it's not only us that are finding Wesley's play impressive. We also have a tweet from Jürgen Lutz, who says, the ease with which Wesley So's play is frightening, isn't it? Hashtag chess champs. So remember, if you do want to join in the conversation, we're having a lot of fun in the studio. Please, you can do this by tweeting us on the hashtag chess champs.
Definitely.
That's right. And that last tweet, it hits the nail on the head. Wesley, he just seems to be in the flow. We've seen Magnus Carlsen talk about the flow. It's just when you see things and you're so confident, you just put moves down on the board, you improve your pieces, everything just seems to work in your favour. And Wesley So, he's done that. He's centralised all of his pieces, his rook in the middle, his queen in the middle, his other rook now joining the action. Everything just seems to be working in his favour. Meanwhile, Nakamura, he's spending a lot of time on the clock. His pieces are stuck. We see his black bishop there is not coordinated with any of the rest of his army. His bishop is very far away from his queen, his rooks. All of Black's pieces, they're lacking that cohesion, and therefore White springs forward with his knight. He's smelling blood. He senses the kill. That's a very strong move. That knight edging further towards the Black king. I think Jovanka's going to be spot on with her prediction.
That king is not going to last long without any cover like that. And I just love Wesley's play. You know, here he's moved his knight forward, and now I think Wesley will be calculating whether that knight can give a check. So here there are a few captures on the board, and there's a few checks. So here's a time to kind of sit back and try and do some calculation.
That's right, Wesley So, he had his glasses off, he's put them back on. He knows this is a critical moment, he senses it. He's fidgeting a bit, but that's because he's getting excited. He senses that there's a way to get at the Black King, and I think there is actually a direct way to win this game. Maybe if we bring up the board, we can see Black's last move, bringing a knight towards the centre. White wants to jump in and give check with his own knight, but that Black knight defends this square. Therefore, it's time to get rid of a defender. I think Wesley, he can sacrifice his rook for this knight, giving up 5 points, giving up that rook for a knight, which is normally worth 3 points, but more importantly, removing a defender from the board. And then White's knight is going to jump in and deliver the killing blow to the Black King. Wesley So, he's spoiled for choice here, but I think he's going to find it. That's the kind of move he'd be looking for. As Jovanka mentioned earlier, we look for those checks, we look for those captures. The winning move here is a capture.
And he's done it.
And he's done it.
And you can see Hikaru. He looks completely shocked by that move. Okay, so Hikaru has taken the rook. We are expecting Wesley So to suddenly use that knight and jump in with a check.
That's right. So White could jump in with his knight, but also White could shuffle his rook across just one square, attacking the Black Queen before jumping in with that knight.
Oh, even better. Use every single piece in the book, yeah.
Exactly. Using every piece, nearly every move here gives a big advantage. Hikaru shaking his head. He knows that White is going to move in for the kill. Wesley's jumped in with his knight. Maybe not quite the best move, but should be good enough. Here, Black is going to have to get rid of that knight. That knight is too deep inside the Black camp now. That knight giving check. If Nakamura moves his king will be forced out into the open where it will get checkmated. For example, if he moves his king forward one square, that king will get checkmated immediately. Hikaru Nakamura just needs to give up his rook here for that knight.
And he's done it. He has given up the rook. But look at that pawn. It is one square away from queening. And what's worse is that pawn is protected by the bishop. It's on a light square as well, so it can never, ever be captured. Oh, this is... I honestly expect Hikaru to resign in the next few moves.
Oh, really?
When he can't do anything about that pawn. And all he can do is just pass with the bishop and just kind of go,
Yeah, that last move by Black, maybe if we bring up the analysis board, that last move by Black, he's just trying to blockade. It's all about whether Wesley So can break through. Black is just passive. He's defending. Look at this queen, blocking a pawn. Queens are the worst blockaders. They want to be active, zooming around the board on open lines, open diagonals. Black's queen is passive. This Black king is helpless in the corner. This Black bishop just trying to coordinate with his forces. Meanwhile, White has this monster pawn. This pawn is one square away from becoming a queen. All White needs to do is remove this blockade. There's a few ways to do this. He doesn't need to rush, though. Wesley So is in complete control. I would think about eventually trying to get rid of Black's blockader, but maybe first it's time to start winning some pawns.
Yeah, that was my instinct. Win those pawns on the left-hand side of the board. Make a second passed pawn, a pawn which has no opposition, and he's gone for the pawns on the right-hand side of the board. Those weren't necessarily the ones I would have gone for, but still, the position is so good.
Oh, and Hikaru is looking so uncomfortable there. Is it only a matter of moves now before he just gives this up?
I think so.
I do think so. I think the problem is that these bishops, it's all to do with these bishops. Black bishop is on the dark squares, White's bishop is on the light squares. They're opposite colour. They cannot ever meet. And there's just no way that Wesley is going to be losing that monster pawn on the right-hand side of the board. And when it's one square away from queening, my goodness.
Yeah, that white pawn next to the Black king right now, that pawn, it's going to be there for the rest of the game. It's just impossible to get rid of it. It's like literally having a thorn in your side. You can just never remove it. You're always uncomfortable. You always have to worry about that pawn. It's going to tie down the Black king, the Black queen. Meanwhile, White there, we see he's just pushed a pawn in front of his king. Wesley, he's just going to use those pawns to shelter his own king, while his queen and bishop will do the hard work to win this game. Very calm move there from Wesley So. It shows he's not in a rush, and rightly so. Black's paralysed. He has no productive plan in this position. He pushes a pawn forward. I don't think that helps change anything. White still has complete control here. White can do literally anything. He can go for the kill immediately. He can try and get his pawn up towards the end. make another queen, or he can just sit and wait and really torture Hikaru Nakamura.
And we can see on Hikaru Nakamura's face, he is definitely not happy in this position. He has gone under 4 minutes, so there's not a lot of time for him either to save this position. And I mean, maybe there's not even chances at all for him to save this.
No, there's not too many chances. The only hope, because remember, when you are playing a bad position, you always have to have a very positive mindset. You can't just be a bit defeatist. So the only hope for Hikaru is if the queens come off, then maybe, just maybe, we get into an opposite colour bishop endgame, and those are very, very renowned for their drawing tendencies. But there's just no way that Wesley So is ever going to do that.
I think the one thing that I've really learned from this tournament is that if you are in a better position, do not switch the queens off the board. Just keep them. So Wesley So will probably keep them, is my bet.
Yes.
That's completely right, Kaya. That's an important lesson for everyone at home as well, especially if you have the safer king.
Yeah.
Sometimes trading queens is okay when you're better, but as long as it makes the position more simple and you have enough pieces left to win. But if you're attacking, if you have a safer king, never trade the queens.
There's a nasty trick on the board.
For who?
for Wesley So. So if Hikaru Nakamura is careless, then Wesley is going to play the move. So, yeah.
So, for example, Wesley So, it looks like he's just attacking these pawns on the left side. If black moves one of these pawns, if he's careless, if he forgets about his king, Jovanka, the winning move. I've seen it, you've seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Kaya.
It's to do with the check.
Always look for checks and captures first. You can do this. We believe in you.
All right. Does it have something to do with the queen? The white queen?
Yes.
All right. Well...
Maybe not the first move.
Okay. You guys have to tell me.
It's about this X-ray attack against the black king. So you need to remove this pawn in order to get to the black king.
Yes.
Of course.
And therefore, making a new queen, actually sacrificing this pawn now. It's a double check, a double attack against the black king. The black king has to move. It has to take this queen. And now
the bishop and the queen coordinate, match up the squares, and they coordinate on 1 point. And it's right opposite the black king, and that is checkmate.
Wow.
That's right. And that is why Hikaru Nakamura, he doesn't want to play this move, but he's had to retreat to break the tension along this line against the black king. Hikaru trying to defend, but Wesley, he can just capture everything on the left side of the board now. If he wants to, he can start snacking on pawns, or he can just maintain complete control. Lots and lots of ways for Wesley So to win this game. He's going to be setting up tricks like that last one. Small threats here and there. Eventually, Nakamura, he's going to be so low on time that he won't be able to stop those tricks forever. And Wesley So, a very classy move, just bringing his bishop to the centre of the board. Now he captures the pawn.
Now he captures, yeah. And Hikaru desperately trying to control the square in front of that monster pawn on the right-hand side of the board. Oh.
That's right. And Wesley slowly advancing. He's in a very sadistic mood right now. He wants to just torture Hikaru Nakamura. Nakamura looks like he got shocked there. I think he's...
I think this is... Yes, and then Wesley So gave a little check there, and the black king is forced to take a step up the board. But now the question is there anything forcing?
That's right. Black's king now is completely out in the open. White is a pawn up at that monster pawn up in right at the top of the board. White has that extra pawn. White has 4 pawns versus 3 pawns. Black's king is also, I mean, that king is just ripe for, it's not going to survive, essentially, compared to the white king, nicely protected by 2 white pawns.
Yeah, and because Wesley has, he's just blessing with him. He's just repeating the position twice, not to take a draw, but simply to get some extra time on the clock. And there you go, he has made his bid for victory, whooshing the queen all the way to the top of the right-hand side of the board.
That's right. So White just toying with his... Wesley, he's playing with his food here. He brought his queen into the enemy camp. He's retreating the queen now. He's just looking for weaknesses. Eventually, Hikaru, he's going to have to defend on the right, the left, the centre. Eventually, he won't be able to defend one of the flanks.
Yes.
Sorry. And White's queen now is attacking a pawn on the left side.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, it does look like Wesley So is wasting time, but what he's really doing is he's just building up time on the clock, and he's just indicating to Hikaru Nakamura that he's in no rush. He can enjoy his position for as long as he wants to, and he can make some small improvements, and Hikaru is just helpless, cannot do a thing.
That's right, Hikaru's had to retreat his queen now to its starting square. It's actually, Black's queen is on its starting square, Black's bishop is on its starting square, Black's king is out in front of the army. It should never be that way around.
No, you should never have a Spartan king. No way.
All right, well, Hikaru Nakamura, he is probably about to lose his first game, and that is devastating for him, as he did also lose day one. But in the match between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi, the Russian has won game one and is about to come back on day two. So much interesting stuff happening.
That's absolutely thrilling stuff. Because if I wouldn't have predicted it at the start of this round, but I did think Magnus can easily do it. But he started off with a loss, so we'll see. Magnus has to come back fighting, but
definitely. And so Hikaru Nakamura also has to come back fighting, but probably it will be in the next game. Is there anything he can do here?
He just has to pray now. He's just making moves with his king. It's all about whether Wesley So can find that knockout blow. He's been maybe messing around a bit slightly with his queen, not really going for the kill immediately. He's just teasing Nakamura, but Wesley, he just has to make sure he doesn't wait too long. He can't let the moment pass. He can't get too low on time and get nervous. He does gain 10 seconds after every move, so he's picked up a minute or two just by giving a few checks here and there. But it's time to use that queen, time to use that bishop to coordinate together. Yeah. We see on the board here, I think it's time to just bring that queen closer to the black king. This queen needs to coordinate. The queen needs to attack on the dark squares. The bishop needs to attack on the light squares. Instead, he shuffles his queen across one square. I like that one. He's maybe going to zoom up the board and give a check, or another very dangerous idea to bring his queen to the top of the board and start attacking some black pieces defended by this monster pawn we've been talking about. Hikaru trying to defend. I mean, he's trying his best. He's done a very good job of surviving, but it shouldn't be enough in the end.
Yeah, Hikaru is just waiting for the end to come. And Wesley So, with that last queen move, is now attacking that pawn on the left-hand side. And he's just given up that pawn. Is there some trick? I don't think there's any trick behind it. He's just simply accepted that that pawn is dead.
That's right. So White is about to capture Black's remaining pawn there on the left flank. We see White does capture that pawn. Hikaru Nakamura, he's trying a final trick. He's going for the White king, but that White king has too many defenders around it. There's plenty of choice here. Wesley So, he jumps up with his queen, attacking the black bishop. I'm not sure about that one. I would like to centralize my queen now as White, if I can. White's queen is a bit offside there in the corner of the board. Black's king just dropping back to protect the bishop.
Yeah. And now I think we're going to see Hikaru try to remove some of the protection that is surrounding the White king. Okay, he's moved his queen.
Oh, he doesn't look too happy about his move. Or maybe the entire position here. He's shaking his head and, well, definitely he's not happy.
So he's trying to set up. So he's holding in reserve moves like pawn takes pawn, and Wesley himself has played pawn takes pawn. So he is not afraid. He thinks that his king is entirely safe and he can just remove material. And yeah, you can see it. Wesley is 3 pawns. What is it? 1, 2, 3. I always have to count. 3 pawns up.
It's good counting, Ivanka. So White has 4
Sometimes
pawns.
I fail at the most basic thing.
That's important to check these things to make sure we're always kind of up to date with how things develop. I mean, White does have those 4 pawns against the Black's 1. So actually, Wesley's now, maybe he is open to a queen trade. White just has so many pawns on the right and the left. They will be too much. They will overwhelm the black army. Black's bishop there just advancing 1 square, but Wesley bringing his queen across. Black capturing a pawn. I think the end is nigh now. White has a few ways to win. White could give a check with his queen. He could, if he wants to keep things simple, it's time to push that pawn on the left side. That pawn has no rival now.
Yeah, and
instead he gives a check.
Giving a check. And now he has to defend the bishop in the center of the board. He cannot let that bishop be lost. And he's done that by retreating the queen diagonally.
That's right. So white now actually threatening to push that monster pawn. That pawn was threatening to become a queen. So black blocks the line of the white
queen. And it's happening, David. He is pushing that pawn on the left-hand side. It is 3 squares away from queening. And that, I think, is going to signal the end.
That's right. Now it's a question of, will Hikaru Nakamura allow us to see 3 queens on the board? Will he give up? Will he resign before that?
Well, that would be fun if he would let us do that. But and he does have more time on the clock now than Wesley So. But we see on the bar there, this is completely winning for Wesley So.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes we try not to trust the bar unless we're 100% sure, because the computer, it might see things that humans can't see, that us humans we find very difficult to spot. But Wesley, I mean, here it's not just the 2 extra pawns, it's the fact he has 2 potential queens coming on the board, 2 extra potential queens as well as his existing queen. White's pawns racing towards the end there. Nakamura trying to give some checks. We see his last move. He just shuffled his queen across. He wants to give some checks. He wants to give some checks now to the white king. And actually, we've seen Wesley So has allowed that. Wesley So, has he blundered?
Oh! I think he's blundered.
We need to see the players now. Maybe Wesley So.
I think he's allowed a perpetual check.
Wesley So has blundered. We're speechless here in the studio.
No.
Can't believe it. Wesley So.
That's the most.
And they have repeated the position, and it ends in a draw. This has been completely winning for Wesley So.
Absolutely.
The entire game.
Absolutely. He just needed to be careful as to where to put the king. And unbelievable.
Shock.
I mean, I was just really shocked by Wesley's last move and very careless.
I cannot believe how lucky Hikaru Nakamura got there, and he just bounced off. He knows it's 15 minutes until the next game, and he got so lucky in this first game.
Yes, absolutely lucky. I mean, there's just nothing for it. I mean,
And look at this. This is the reaction when Wesley So realizes he has made a huge blunder in a winning position. And let's see what Hikaru Nakamura looks like. Oh, that's not nice. Come on. It looks like that's what he's saying. Oh, yeah, just laughing, he realizes he got extremely lucky there. And this makes everything so much more interesting, because with a draw here, well then, Nakamura still has all to play for. And I would love, David, to just go into the position, because it all was so faster. Where did Wesley So blunder this?
That's right. So it was it was just before the end. It all happened so suddenly. Wesley So completely winning position. Ivanka and I, we were expecting the game to end not in a draw. We were expecting the game to end very quickly in a white win. And it's just he walked into a perpetual check. It meant that the white king could not escape from being checked forever. In this position, white has several winning moves. White could just move his queen away to give space to his king. He could also just push a pawn, and this pawn is very close to getting to the end of the board. Black here could try and give some checks with his queen, but it wouldn't be enough. The white king could just walk away. The white king could sidestep. Instead, he moved his queen to the center. Normally, that's a very sensible move. Normally, we always say, centralize your queen. The queen is extremely powerful there. But this allowed a check, attacking the white king. The king has to run away. We saw another check, and this must be what Wesley So had just forgotten about. He thought maybe he could block with his queen here, but if the queen blocks, suddenly black can take this bishop. This bishop is undefended in the middle of the board. Wesley So must have forgotten that. Instead, he had to move his king, and after a couple more checks, he found he couldn't escape. There's just no way to run away. Shocking developments. Literally any move, I think, well, almost any move was winning, apart from what he chose.
Wow.
Shocking stuff there. I'm still a bit speechless.
And we know he did have quite a little time on his clock, but it wasn't that hard for him to... I mean, the clock wasn't that pushy for him. Was it just too confident here for Wesley So?
Yeah, I think he forgot the most fundamental rule, which is that you protect your king. You always worry about your monarch, especially when the queens are on the board. And like Kyle on Twitter says, wow, that blunder, it's absolutely, leaves me speechless too. I didn't expect that.
All right, well, we have had the most interesting start to day 2 of semi-finals, and this is what the standings look like after round 1. So Magnus Carlsen, he won day 1, but he lost game 1 of day 2 against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and that means that if Jan Nepomniachtchi can just keep pushing for draws now, we will have tie breaks in that matchup. And then Hikaru Nakamura, he lost day one, and then he looked like he was completely losing in game one. That would have been devastating. Wesley So blundered, and here they are. They had a draw in the first game, so still all to play for Hikaru Nakamura. And I mean, Hikaru Nakamura must be feeling quite lucky, quite happy right now. But Nepomniachtchi, David, how do you think he's feeling?
Nepomniachtchi, he must be on top of the world right now. I mean, yesterday he had such a hard day. He had so many winning chances, he just couldn't finish them off. And today he's taken advantage of the fact that Magnus Carlsen is a bit of a slow starter. He's pounced, and I think we're going to see the best of Carlsen now. Nepomniachtchi, if he can keep that up, it's going to be a fantastic fight. It's hard to call a winner.
All right, well, we will follow that game between Magnus Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi in the next round. It's starting in a few minutes. Before it all starts, let's shake up round one, and let's hear from the chess players. Would they rather never travel again or never, I think it's win a chess tournament again? Let's hear.
Oh, never travel any other country. Hands down. I have seen, I think 35 to 50 something around those countries, and I'm satisfied. But I need to win more.
I would say never travel. Chess is more important.
Chess is one of the most important things in my life. At the end of the day, winning is all that matters.
I don't know. The thing is that if you don't travel to other country, maybe you don't win tournaments.
This is the easiest one. I don't need to travel to any other country. I can sacrifice that, but I have to win some chess tournament.
No, no, I think I'm fine. I'm not traveling.
All right. Well, Magnus Carlsen, luckily he said he would easily give up travel and definitely win some more chess tournaments, Jovanka. I mean, we have this year with the COVID been missing traveling a lot. What would you choose? Never travel again or never win a chess tournament again?
Never win a chess tournament again. I haven't won so many chess tournaments.
Oh, well, you are British Women's Champions 9 times. You have won. You have won quite a lot.
That's true, but I would give up the traveling.
You would give up
the traveling, yeah.
All right. Well, luckily, Magnus Carlsen, we did hear from him in this piece. He chose never travel again. And that's good because he could be winning the Skilling Open, the first tournament in the Champions Chess Tour. But he had a horrible start to this day, David, losing against Nepomniachtchi. What happened in that game?
That's right. It was actually a crazy game. It was so up and down, both sides winning at different points. Actually, this was the critical moment. We see black has actually sacrificed a piece. Magnus Carlsen playing black in this game, Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces. Black has sacrificed a piece, but the first thing we notice is that white's king is out in the open. This king, no defenders around it. Normally, Jovanka's mentioned this, we call it a Spartan king, leading from the front. We don't want that. We want our king nicely, safe and tucked away behind some pawns. Magnus Carlsen had a winning move in this position. He could have just shifted his queen across, indirectly attacking the white king. If the king sidesteps, black could now trap the white queen. This queen is now, it only has one safe square. The queen would have to retreat, and once the queens get exchanged, black wins a rook at the end. Black has a winning position. Instead, Magnus Carlsen missed that moment. He captured a pawn, he got a bit greedy, but white just sidestepped with his king. This king, we saw, started to run away, and white's extra knight was the deciding factor. Big missed opportunity for Magnus, and it swung the whole 360 for Nepomniachtchi to win that one.
Wow. And Jovanka, we know Nepomniachtchi, he did a comeback in the quarterfinals, and it must be amazing for him to start the day off like this.
Yes, it must be very satisfying because he had so many missed opportunities yesterday. But, you can't write off Magnus Carlsen. I've seen him lose his first game and then come back fighting and win 2 games in a row. So I don't know. I'm not going to discount him.
So very exciting, actually, that we are following this next game, David, because we might see Magnus Carlsen, I think he's with white pieces, really going to show that he's better than this.
Yeah, I mean, as Jovanka mentioned, he's a wounded animal right now. His pride has been wounded. He needs to fight back. He knows he wasn't at his best yesterday despite winning. Magnus, he needs to turn things around, and normally that's what motivates him, adversary. And he always brings his best when he needs to.
All right, well, round 2 of day 2 of semifinals is about to start. Magnus Carlsen won day 1, but he lost game 1 of day 2. So Nepomniachtchi is feeling full of confidence before game 2. And Wesley So, well, he could have won game 1. It ended in a draw, and we will soon see Hikaru Nakamura join in that game, and he needs to start winning if he wants to go to tie breaks with Wesley So. Magnus Carlsen looking very concentrated before game 2, Jovanka.
Yeah, he is. He's always looking very confident. But now he looks especially fierce. Yeah, he is very motivated, and I really expect him to come back. Oh, David, have you been on the hotline to Magnus and advising him on his opening choices? This is an opening that David is very, very famous for.
Okay.
That's right. So we have seen an opening called the Sicilian defense, which means white pushes her pawn in front of his king 2 squares, and black meets it by pushing a pawn in front of his bishop. In return, white, on his second move, he moved a pawn, we call it the C3 Sicilian because of the coordinate, the square that white moved his pawn to on the second move. I've actually been playing this since I was 5 years old. I've played it against Magnus Carlsen. I've actually played it against Jan Nepomniachtchi as well. Magnus, he nearly never opens this way with white. I saw he did it yesterday against Nepomniachtchi, but it's so rare for him. It means that he's trying to surprise his opponent. He has a special idea in mind.
Have you been on the phone with either of these two, David?
No comment.
Okay. Well, then I have to ask, who is a white or a black here sort of pushing it into this exact opening?
It's definitely Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, okay, well, then we know who you were on the phone with last night. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, you should really expect some great commentary from David Howell now, because he's the expert, maybe even the one chose this opening for Magnus Carlsen. What's happening?
That's right, so no pressure then for me. We see a lot of stuff happening on the board. A set of bishops have been traded. More importantly, white has pushed his king to the right side of the board. White has castled first. And in this exact line of the Sicilian, of the C3 Sicilian that we mentioned, it's all about black's king. Black's king is in the middle of the board. It doesn't want to push itself towards the left because it will never be safe that side. Black's left side of the board is actually very open. Black needs to put his king on the right side, but at the moment it's blocked by a bishop, and that's why we see Magnus Carlsen go on the attack. He's pushed a pawn, his corner pawn, in front of the rook on the left side. He's going to push forward that pawn even more to start attacking black's knights, to start opening things up before Jan Nepomniachtchi can get his king to safety. I love this line for white, personally. I think it's extremely difficult for black to handle. We see Stockfish, the computer evaluations as well, above the board. Black has a few moves, they're all fine, but they're not easy, they're not human moves to find. Black's best moves now are actually to move pieces which have already moved once before, to move a knight, to move a queen. We see black has, Nepomniachtchi, he's decided to drop back with his queen because this queen would soon be attacked by a white rook. But for black, the main problem is this bishop. This bishop cannot move right now. It cannot be developed. And as long as this bishop cannot be developed, black's king can never get to safety. It's all a race. Can white get an attack going before black's king jumps to safety there? And we see a couple more moves.
Wow, and Magnus pushing that pawn all the way up.
Yeah, he is pushing that pawn hard, isn't he? Completely all the way up the board. And I really like his next move. He has taken a stake in the center by advancing his pawn. And just look at it. So he really wants to open up the position as quickly as possible because this pawn is challenging its black counterpart. Wow, this position really is going to heat up because it's all about, can white start doing things before the black king has moved to safety by castling?
And obviously, Magnus Carlsen is in very known territory. He's almost 2 minutes up from what he started with, so he's playing extremely fast.
That's right, and we see more action. A set of knights have left the board now as well, and white has jumped forward with his queen. I love that move. It means that black cannot develop. We talked about this bishop. If we bring up the analysis board, black's bishop is still paralyzed. It still cannot develop itself. White's last move, bring this queen forward. At the moment, that's the only white piece that is attacking, but it's attacking a very weak point. The square only defended by black's bishop. Black wants to get his king to safety, but moving this bishop would lose a pawn now. This pawn would be undefended. And now we see black decide to push a pawn in front of his rook, attacking this queen. But now, if black ever wants to bring his king this side, castle to the right-hand side of the board, now his king will never be safe because this pawn will always be a weakness. This is fascinating stuff. I'd love to say I've studied this exact position before, but I would be lying. This is all brand new as far as I can tell. Both players freestyling, both players feeling really aggressive. I think Magnus wants to win. Nepomniachtchi, he's not happy with a 1-point lead. He wants to push even more.
Yeah, this is brilliant play and psychology by Magnus Carlsen, because yes, black has advanced that pawn on the right-hand side of the board and is attacking the white queen. But like David said, if once that queen moves, there is just no safe place for the black king to go. And that is going to cause Nepomniachtchi so much discomfort. And I really adore the kind of human psychology, because although the computers might always go, well, the position is completely level 0.0000 until infinity, there is just so much play. And in fact, Twitter is also complementing the human aspect of chess. So we do have a tweet from Benz Polyak. He says, Wesley So's blunder in the last game is the reason why chess will always be better with humans playing. And again, we have a tweet from Carl Portman agreeing chess is a human game despite computers being infinitely better. Mistakes can be made at any time, and thank heavens for it.
That's right. There's definitely beauty in imperfection, and we've seen that the games are so exciting because of this rapid time control, because of the online format. There are mistakes, there is drama. I personally love watching computers play because just they come up with such creative ideas, especially modern computers, but it will never compare to human chess. Just the human psychology as well. I mean, the psychology of this match alone, this head-to-head battle, it's so intense.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the human psychology, just kind of like pressurizing your opponent, pushing them, forcing them, giving them choices. And you can see Nepomniachtchi has now advanced pawn on the left-hand side of the board. Wouldn't have been a move that I expected. I would have perhaps focused myself on development. I'm looking at the bishop that is all at home. But OK. He has advanced his pawn on the left-hand side of the board, and black is trying to gain space.
That's right. So black is trying to gain space on that left side. Meanwhile, white has to decide, how do I improve my pieces? At the moment, only white's queen is beyond his first rank, his first line. His bishop, we see on the left side there, white's rook is still asleep, white's knight and bishop are still asleep. It's time to bring those into the game. Personally, I would want to bring my knight in now. There's a rule I was taught when I was young, knights before bishops. It's a very general rule. Sometimes you want to develop those bishops first, but I would be wanting to improve my knight for white now. And OK, Magnus Carlsen.
Magnus is sat here listening. He knows the rule, knights before bishops. And if you note, the knight has moved to the edge of the board. And the reason why the knight moved there is, first of all, it's attacking that pawn that black has just advanced. But also, it doesn't want to get in the way of the bishop that has a nice, clean diagonal. OK, and Nepomniachtchi has, in fact, taken that knight, and Magnus has taken that bishop with the rook.
That's right. So a fair trade there, bishop for knight, both roughly worth the same amount, but the pieces remaining on the board, that's what those are the important factors. Black's knight nicely centralized in the middle there. White's bishop still at home, but that white bishop is controlling many squares that the black knight wants to jump to. Personally, I like white's position only slightly, because white's king is safer. White's king is nicely tucked away behind those pawns on the right side. Black's king is still in the middle. It still needs to make a big decision where it wants to hide. I think Magnus, he'll be happy with the outcome of the opening. There's still enough pieces left, enough tension left, and he has the safer king. We saw in that last game when Nepomniachtchi won, king safety. It's a double-edged sword. It can go either way. But as long as Magnus has the safer king, he'll be happy.
I have to say, I love Magnus's position. I'm going to go a bit further because of the reason that you just said, because of this unsafe king. Nepomniachtchi is going to be so tortured by that fact. Where is that king going to go to? And this is where the psychology comes into play. And he will try, maybe even play the inaccurate moves, doing everything possible to try to get that king into safety. And I am loving white's position.
Well, actually, talking about psychology, always in a chess game, I guess psychology is a big factor, but is it even more of a factor in every game that Magnus Carlsen plays? Seeing yesterday's game where Jan Nepomniachtchi he was never able to get wins in winning positions. Is that typical psychology in games with Magnus Carlsen?
Yeah, I mean, among our fellow professional players, we do talk about the Magnus effect. He just has this kind of aura around him. Sometimes you get winning positions, you know you've got him up against the wall, you know you only need 2 or 3 moves to win, but somehow it's so hard to finish him off. Yeah, it's just so hard to break through his defences. Nepomniachtchi experienced that yesterday. 2 completely winning positions. Anyone else in the world, he would have won those games.
Because he wouldn't make those inaccuracies against anyone else in the world. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I mean, the thing is, if you defeat Magnus, that has such power and such kudos, you get really excited and you start to kind of go this woo.
Yeah, when you see the win coming, sort of.
Exactly, and you start to stress about things. There's also the question that you know that you're playing Magnus Carlsen and you start to second guess yourself. Well, why is the world champion playing this? Perhaps he's seen one move more than me, so I'm going to double check my lines and therefore I'm going to use a little bit more time on the clock. And those are the things that kind of lead to those big mistakes. And we saw that yesterday. We really believe that Nepomniachtchi would have beaten anyone else in that position. But because it was Magnus, woo.
But then apparently he learned from it, coming back with a strong win in the first game today. But this time Magnus Carlsen is in the lead, though.
Yeah, it was a slightly different game because in the first game we saw that there was a very, very sharp game. And because Magnus played inaccurately, he could react to that. And then because his hand was forced, we saw a kind of situation where there was just no coming back for Magnus because Magnus was a knight down. So, yeah, different situations.
Yeah, well, so much psychology going on in these chess games, and that makes it so much more interesting. And I think both players made a move as we were talking, David.
That's right. So actually, Black's just made a move, and Magnus Carlsen, he's been thinking for 2 minutes now. So Nepomniachtchi has just pushed a pawn forward. And if we bring up the board, we can see his plan with his last move. It looks like a weakening move. We don't like pushing pawns in front of our king. But I think this is very clever. Black pushes a pawn. He's just created a bit of a hole, a very safe square for his king now. If Magnus Carlsen just makes a move, just a random move, Black will put his king on this square, protected very nicely by pawns. More importantly, his rook still protects this pawn, so White's queen cannot get into the position right now. Personally, I think that's a very clever choice by Nepomniachtchi. He's found a very safe kind of hiding place for his king, and that's what the battle will be about in the next 5-10 moves. Can White get to that king?
Yeah, and we have a very great tweet from Chessable. He says, Magnus follows Johann Sebastian Christiansen's chessable course on the C3 Sicilian for the first 14 moves before deviating with a different 15th move. Was this the best move?
Wow.
So Magnus has been watching some Chessable courses, and Chessable Course is a training website, and it also it's a great website. There's many books online, and it also has this really unique thing where you can practice your chess openings and your chess books and your chess endgame techniques using the science of spaced repetition. And so using this kind of really lovely thing, it actually pinpoints your strengths and your weaknesses, and it identifies, okay, well, you have to improve there, and it will force you to repeat it again and again.
And I have actually been into Chessable a little bit because I want to improve my chess skills a lot, and I do know they have Black Friday sales all weekend. So good chance to get some great courses at a great price there this weekend.
Wow, I mean, if it's good enough for the world champion, I think it's good enough for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know the first thing I'm going to be doing when I get back to my room tonight, I'm going to be going on Chessable, buying this course on this opening, just to compare it, just to see what Magnus Carlsen's been studying.
Well, and you might also call Magnus Carlsen if you're happy with how he plays your opening.
That's right, that's right. And we have seen a couple of moves. Black has just retreated his knight from the centre now. For Magnus Carlsen, that will be a small gain. And we also see the bar there under Magnus Carlsen. It zooms slightly over towards the white side. So Black's move, retreating this knight away from the centre of the board, I'm not a big fan. It had to defend a pawn, but that's not a good sign for Black. You want your knight in the centre. Jovanka calls it an octo knight, controlling 8 squares. That knight now isn't controlling half as many. White's pieces look very nicely placed. Maybe the bishop can jump forward to attack that knight. Lots of possible ideas here. Maybe if we bring up the board just briefly, we can see a very strong move here, I think, for White. Just bringing the bishop forward, attacking this knight. This knight feels like the key defensive piece. I would want to get rid of that if I can. Also, I would want to try and stop the Black Knight taking this pawn, maybe. I think it's Magnus Carlsen. He's got the advantage. He just needs to play energetically. He can't wait for too long for black to get his king into safety.
Yeah, he definitely can't wait. He needs to use the momentum. He has the attack, which means that he is the one putting pressure on the position. And if he sits there and makes some small little moves, maybe some pawn moves that don't really have a purpose, then what's going to happen is that Nepomniachtchi is simply going to move the king forward to its hiding place, and then the rooks will get centralized, and then, okay, it becomes very, very difficult for white to do anything.
All right, well, Magnus Carlsen is thinking. We were talking about chess books earlier, and I want to mention to you what my favorite chess book is.
Ooh.
And obviously, it's not a chess book with many notations because I'm not a great chess player, but it is a Norwegian book called Chess or Life by Atle Grønn. And what I love in that chess book is that he tries to find out what God's chess rating would be. And I think it's an American scientist who figured out that God's chess rating would be somewhere along 3,600. And so the quote in the book is, so Magnus Carlsen is 750 rating points away from being God. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, I need to check that book out. It does sound fun.
Oh, it's so much fun. Chess or life. And I guess it's a little bit like that. When you're a chess player, it just infects your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely affected our lives. Maybe for everyone at home as well. Chess is life.
Chess is life. It is. You get just so obsessed with it, just looking at these 64 squares and everything that is going on there.
Yeah, 64 squares, but almost infinite possibilities, infinite moves. I mean, I've been studying chess now for 25 years, and I still feel I'm learning every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. We've played chess for so many years, and every single game, it's a different situation. It's a different position, and that's pretty unique.
I mean, isn't there more possibilities on the chessboard than we have stars in the sky even?
Yeah, I think they said there's more than atoms in the universe.
Wow.
It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, just by the end of move one, so white makes a move, black makes a move, there's already 400 different positions.
Oh, wow.
And it multiplies it infinitely from there. It's incredible.
You can sort of understand why Magnus Carlsen is taking some time to think now. I have no idea what the number of possible moves here is, but I mean, probably a lot.
That's right, that's right. And for those of you at home who think maybe, so many infinite possibilities, but how do you understand it? That's where the beauty of chess comes in. Like we all have different ideas. We all have different styles. There's no right or wrong answer sometimes. And
yeah,
so
absolutely. You just have to go there and play. And it does sound like mind-bogglingly complex, like you say, all these moves. But, that's really not the fun in chess. The fun is just to sit down with your friends, jazz it out. And, and if you want to get better, you want to start learning, then there's some great websites out there. And if you want to start, there's a fantastic one which is called Train Magnus. This is just for beginners and for basic things. And, even has games where you land a plane on certain squares. I was playing that a few days ago.
How were you?
Yes, you just land planes on certain squares and it gets faster and faster. And, stuff like that, it really helps with chess. And it's a perfect game to teach your child.
Exactly. And I mean, it's easier to learn when you are a child, like languages. A child's brain is more open to learning chess than grown-ups. Not that grown-ups shouldn't start. They should start on chessable.
Yes. No, I mean, it is easier to learn as a child, but then as an adult, you understand it because that's one of the beauties. You have the intelligence to actually understand the strategies and you can go, oh, yes, I understand that, and you'll learn. Meanwhile, the child will probably take about 10, 20 times of falling into the same trap before it realizes.
All right, well, after a few minutes of thinking, Magnus made his move. It was a rook move.
That's right, a slightly mysterious rook lift, and actually it's a pawn sacrifice. And now we see Nepomniachtchi has grabbed a pawn, and white's rook swings the whole way across the board. I didn't even have that on my radar. This just shows Magnus Carlsen, he's looking at every side of the board there. That rook, such a long-range piece, it swung across, moved across 6 squares. Very impressive stuff. That rook now on the right side, it is targeting a pawn just in front of it. That pawn is ganged up on by the white rook, the white queen. White is down a pawn right now, but black's queen is slightly offside on the left flank there. Very interesting stuff by Magnus, very creative stuff. Nepomniachtchi should be able to hold the balance, but Magnus Carlsen trying a few different things, trying to surprise his opponent, trying to get at him from every angle.
Yeah, it's a difficult move to react to because all the action was on the left-hand side of the board, and suddenly with the rook swinging over to the right-hand side, you have to sit there and think about that one, and then it's like, oh, my king might be in danger. And you have to also remember the computer and ourselves at home know that the position is equal. But I can tell you, Nepomniachtchi doesn't know that. He's thinking, ooh, is there danger here? Is there something I must think about everything? And, of course, is under the pressure.
He is, and his clock is ticking. He does still have more time on the clock than Magnus Carlsen, but I mean, it looks on his face and the way I've been talking about this game so far, David, is that it's not very comfortable for him, this position.
No, that's right. And now we see he's kind of wincing, he's cringing, he's not sure what to even look for next. It shows he's definitely not happy. Also, we mentioned the Magnus effect, playing Magnus Carlsen. Sometimes, I mean, I've been lucky, I've played him several times myself. You just see ghosts. You think, oh, he spotted everything. You think, oh, that looks scary. Actually, it's not that scary, but it's because it's Magnus Carlsen that it becomes scary.
Being 650 rating points away from being God, I can understand why you're seeing ghosts with him.
There is a little trap in the position. So, for instance, White is attacking that pawn on the right-hand side of the board. So the natural instinct there is actually to defend it. So you defend it by advancing a pawn. And this would be a horrible, horrible, horrible move because White would centralize the queen just one square, but diagonally, that's it, David. And suddenly the queen attacks the pawn, but also is threatening to penetrate the position. So teamed with the rook, you can imagine the queen's whooshing down all the way and giving some very unpleasant checks. And we've seen it time and time again. An undefended king is in deadly peril.
That's right. So that would be a very greedy move, trying to defend this pawn now, and it would backfire because Black's king would be so weak. Instead, he tucks his king away, allowing Magnus to capture this pawn. But at least Black's king now is still protected by 3 pawns. It's still in the balance. We see Magnus Carlsen does grab his pawn back, so he's now restored equality with the pawns. He's restored material equality and, okay, very sensible, thereby Nepomniachtchi putting his knight back in the centre of the board. Knights are so good in the centre. This one's still very much in the balance. We see the bar is roughly in the middle, but it's not clear at the moment. It's going to be a fight. Whose position is easier to play? Whose plans become more effective? This one is going to heat up, I think. Magnus Carlsen improving another rook there, lining up his queen and rook on the same line. Very sensible stuff. Nepomniachtchi maybe with a slightly weaker king, so he is the one who has to be slightly careful here. Personally, I prefer White's position, despite the fact that maybe with best play, with perfect play, Nepomniachtchi can hold. And Nepomniachtchi centralizing his queen, bringing it back towards the center. Again, very sensible chess. This is another tip for everyone at home. When in doubt, you know, especially if your clock's ticking down, just look for your opponent's threats. If he has no immediate threats, just improve those pieces. Make sure they defend each other. Make sure that they coordinate. The worst possible thing is when all of your pieces are undefended, because that's when the tricks happen against you. That's when things start to go wrong. So Black there, just defending his knight with his queen.
Yes, beautiful, isn't it? Just trying to harmonize the pieces together. Oh,
okay.
So we have a very aggressive move from Magnus. He loves this move, actually. He has pushed the pawn that we have nicknamed Harry because it stands on an H line up 2 squares. And and Black has responded with more in kind by advancing one of his pawns on the left-hand side of the board. And that has been advanced 2 sides. I'm really liking this. Both sides really playing very uncompromisingly.
That's right. So maybe later they're getting ready for a pawn race. You can imagine if all the pieces start disappearing, it's about which pawns are nearer the end of the board to make a new queen, to make a new piece. So both sides advancing pawns there. Not necessarily recklessly. I think, especially for Black, it makes sense to push that pawn on the left side because it is supported by a rook. I'm slightly more concerned about Magnus Carlsen. He's pushing a pawn in front of his king, but he has said in interviews he was inspired by this artificial intelligence program, this AI program, AlphaZero, and AlphaZero loves pushing those pawns at the corner of the board. We do see a set of rooks being traded now. And Magnus, he pushes that pawn even further. He's channeling that AI program. He's channeling AlphaZero.
Yes, and I think he wants to come in with the queen because that pawn is not going to do any damage by itself. It's going to call for assistance, and I think the queen will answer and will try to dash up the board and then try and give a check very close to the Black king.
That's right. If we bring up the board, we can see Magnus Carlsen. He's got a sneaky threat in mind. It might take 2 minutes. It might take 2 moves. It might take 3 moves. but he's going to try and get at the black king. And it's all to do with using that pawn, using his queen, maybe using his bishop all together and getting at that black king.
All right, well, Nepomniachtchi is thinking. He's under 8 minutes on the clock now. I mean, the bar has been on Magnus's side for big parts of the game. It is now very much in the center. Do you think Nepomniachtchi is seeing some winning possibilities in this position, or is he only defending?
For the time being, I think he's defending because his king is so unsafe. So his focus is just, okay, is my king safe? And if it is, then I will try to expand on the queen side. If it's not, I will take measures to protect it. So what we're seeing here is something very reactionary.
That's right, and black is just pushing a pawn at the side of the board there. Actually, that pawn cannot advance any further. It will just be captured by one of white's pawns if it does continue to advance, but it is stopping white from ever pushing forward on that left flank. It's just controlling white's pawns on that side of the board. So this is very much just a battle. Black is trying to stabilise the position.
Yeah.
And we see the bar slightly towards Nepomniachtchi, slightly towards black side there. Maybe Magnus's move is a bit slow, just pushing his bishop. That bishop is still not on a great square. It's still doing exactly the same job it was doing on its start square last move. So, yeah, I think both sides are slightly unsure how to make progress, how to start advancing. Black retreats a knight. I'm not sure about that one. Again, that knight was so beautiful in the centre of the board. But here it's just about manoeuvring, waiting for the right moment. Magnus Carlsen, he's going for the attack, though. He's pushed Harry, that pawn, even further up the board. This is a temporary pawn sacrifice. I'm slightly concerned that he's kind of playing by instinct here. He's not really getting into the position and calculating. That pawn could just be taken potentially right now.
Because the bar does go over to Nepomniachtchi's side after this move.
It does definitely go up to the bar side, and the computer doesn't approve and simply says, just take it off. But yeah, whether a human will actually take that pawn off, because the thing is, if you capture that pawn, okay, and Nepomniachtchi has done that. So, okay, we're expecting Magnus to come in with the queen and give a check. And the queen has checked, and the knight now has blocked this check. So, wow.
Yeah, so black has actually snapped off a pawn. The computer thought that was by far the best move for black. We saw in this position, Magnus Carlsen, he can do anything here. He can just improve a piece. I would be looking to improve this bishop, this rook, sorry, or improve this bishop. Instead, he pushes forward. Just that is a pawn sacrifice. Black snapped it off, the computer's best move. As a human, sometimes we want to defend. Sometimes we just think, okay, it's easier to just keep our king nice and safe behind these three pawns. But if your opponent's offering you a pawn and you think, actually, I can grab it and there's no consequences, then you might as well take it. And that's what Nepomniachtchi has done. This is the ambitious approach. Slightly greedy, but it's the ambitious approach. Allowing a check, and he's blocked with his knight. A knight is a king's best friend. This knight blockading the queen check, defending everything. Magnus is just a pawn down right now. He can recapture that pawn, but then he would be walking into this line of the rook. Now his bishop could never move because his queen would be attacked and white would never be able to escape from that line. So I don't think Magnus is ever going to recapture that pawn right now. He wouldn't even dream of it. But if he leaves that pawn on the board, black will have an extra pawn. Black's knight, a great defender. I'm not sure what Magnus Carlsen has planned. It's a very mysterious move. He kind of rushed into it. Will he regret that decision?
Yeah, he may come to regret it. You know, it might have been this desire to win that might have clouded his judgment. But I am wondering whether, you know, I've said time and time again, Magnus loves to use all his pieces. You know, he won't be just content with just attacking with the queen. I think he will try to involve a rook. And I don't think I agree with you, David. I don't think he's going to be tempted into capturing that pawn. That's perhaps something that can be captured in some time, if possible.
Look at Nepomniachtchi's face. He didn't take his poker face to the computer today.
I think he was born without a poker face.
Yeah. Some of them are, really. Like Magnus Carlsen he does have a poker face, I think.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, Hikaru Nakamura definitely does not have one. He's just giving away his emotions all the time.
Yeah, actually,
wow.
Oh, okay.
I eat my words.
Well, we've been proven wrong on so many occasions, haven't we, David? But in fairness, they've been blunders when we've been proven wrong.
That's right. And Nepomniachtchi did well, he looked surprised by that move. I'm shocked as well. I mean, Magnus Carlsen, his bishop and his queen are on the same line as that black rook. His bishop can never move. I just don't understand. I mean, that pawn, okay, he's won his pawn back, so he's no longer behind in material. He doesn't have to worry about later in the game being a pawn down, but he's tied up. I don't see what the plan is long term. Black can even just wait. How does white ever get that bishop back into the game? Black can also even just offer to trade queens. Black can just sit still. Very surprising. Nepomniachtchi now, once he's recovered from the shock of that last move, he just has to make sure he stays calm. I don't think there's an immediate way to win for Black, but Black has a very pleasant position, and Magnus Carlsen shaking his head very slightly there. I think he's regretting that last move.
Yes, I agree with you, David. It's a very surprising move. And you know how you mentioned that your favourite book when you were growing up was The Seven Deadly Chess Sins? Well, we actually have a tweet from Jonathan Rowson. He says, "It feels like a lifetime ago since I wrote them, but I am so pleased to hear people still talking about the seven deadly sins and chess for Cerberus." And there's even better news here, because Jonathan Rowson says, "I'll soon be doing workshop videos on them for Chessable," which is amazing news because, you know, Jonathan Rowson's books are just fantastic. So to have them in Chessable format where you can just repeat them again and again and improve your just online, is just brilliant.
Yeah, Chessable getting all the best content these days. I mean, those Jonathan Rowson, firstly, we're honoured to have a grandmaster watching our show. But yeah, I mean, he's one of the best writers, one of the most interesting people. Those books, they got me through a very difficult time in my life. I was on an exchange program in France, and just reading his Seven Deadly Chess Sins book got me through that. I can't wait to check that out on Chessable. Meanwhile, we have had a couple of moves. Bit of a surprising move by Nepomniachtchi, shuffling his queen across one square, and Magnus Carlsen has attacked that queen. In this position, I was expecting Nepomniachtchi to just wait. I mean, it's not clear what white's next move is. He could also even offer to trade the queens off now if he wanted to play super safe, because he is in the lead today. Instead, he shuffled the queen across one square. I'm not sure what the idea is. A very mysterious move, and Magnus Carlsen meets it by attacking this queen. The rook now gains time. It ends up on an open file. There is a possible trade here. Instead that queen just sidesteps. I thought maybe Nepomniachtchi had some tricky stuff in mind. He could have gone for safety. Instead, he just shuffles his queen across. The move's back with Magnus Carlsen. The question is, how does he improve this bishop now? How does he get this bishop out of the line of the rook? Yeah,
but it's certainly a kind of a little incentive that Nepomniachtchi perhaps doesn't quite know what he's doing, because Magnus Carlsen just got a free move, and you always get a little buzz when you have those things happen.
All right. Well, Chess24, the host site for this tournament where we get all the chess moves from, they actually tweeted asking, is Magnus Carlsen on tilt? David, is Magnus Carlsen on tilt?
Good question. Chess players, I think tilt, it started from poker, but at chess now we've adopted that term. It means that once you've lost a game, things just start to spiral out of control. You can't readjust mentally. He's on tilt. It all depends on this next few moves, though. If he can turn the game in his favour, he'll be back to himself. He'll be relaxed, and he'll be very confident that he can progress. If the next few moves go against him, I think we might see Magnus losing control, getting a bit emotional. That's the last thing you want sometimes, especially in these speed games. You can't get emotional, because otherwise you just lose control. You make mistakes because of that clock, because of panic. You need to be calm.
But I have to say, Magnus is actually remarkable, because I have never seen him actually tilt, so to speak. I see him lose, and then I immediately see him come back, and I'm like, wow. And while other chess players, they really collapse. But Magnus seems to be of a different breed. And I just love his next move, because he has moved his rook up the board. And I just love it, because that rook could be dashing over to the right-hand side of the board, where it's going to spell a little bit of trouble for Nepomniachtchi.
All right. Well, do we see Magnus Carlsen untilting then?
Possibly. I think the last two moves have gone in his favour, definitely. Nepomniachtchi pretty much did what Nakamura did in the last game. He lost two moves. He moved his queen across one square. Next move, he just moved it back.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't improve his position. Meanwhile, Magnus, as you mentioned, you've improved his rook. He's going to swing that rook across now to the right side. He's going to attack that black knight. It's all about teamwork. That white's queen, white's they're going to try and get at that black knight together. I like what's happened for Magnus. And also, Nepomniachtchi, he had a 2-3 minute advantage That's disappeared. He's now 1 minute behind on the clock. I think it's Nepomniachtchi who needs to think about maybe playing safe now. He's 1 point up today, remember. So if he wins, I mean, if he draws this game, he's still in pole position. He's still in prime position to force some tie breaks at the end of the day. Nepomniachtchi, he just has to make sure he doesn't lose control.
Yeah, and I just love the body language as well. One of the great things about seeing this is that we get to see the players up close and personal on the webcams. And you can see Magnus his posture has improved and he's really into the flow. And there we go. We have a very, very committal move from Nepomniachtchi. He has pushed his pawn forward. And when you push pawns, they have consequences because they cannot go back. Oh, yeah. And Magnus has retreated his rook by 1 square, and he's really determined to move that rook to the right-hand side of the board. He says, no.
Is that a humoristic move by Magnus?
Yeah. Yes, you can see, he's looking at himself, he's like, yes. Deal with that, my friend.
And like patting his shoulder. Good job, Magnus. I will keep moving my rook until the end of time.
Chess players, we definitely have that inner monologue, so I'm sure he's saying
All right. What is the inner monologue for Magnus right now, or before that rook move?
He's thinking, you know, you're scared of me. You're trying to stop my threat, but I'm going to keep dropping them on the board. I'm going to get at that king eventually.
I'm imagining that inner monologue now.
I was thinking, you want to stop my rook? Well, no.
And we do see Jan Nepomniachtchi, he's played a move he didn't really want to play. He's moved his rook across 1 square, but now White's bishop is free. White's bishop is allowed to move. White's queen is no longer eyed up by that black rook.
But also, I have to say, I really, really dislike that last move by Nepomniachtchi. Well, not the rook move, but the pawn move by Nepomniachtchi, because if you suddenly look at that white bishop, you can see that all the squares around the black king, well, they're dark squares, and White has a dark squared bishop. And yeah, absolutely dislike that, because suddenly the power of the bishop has increased, and for me, that spells problems.
That's right. So Jovanka doesn't like this pawn push by Nepomniachtchi. He was scared in this position of White swinging this rook across, attacking the knight, so he defended that square, but this is the move Jovanka was laughing about, dropping the rook back, saying, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get that knight.
One way or another.
I'm gonna
behind you.
I'm gonna get you.
Oh, dear.
You going to join in, David?
No.
All right.
Yeah, we see Nepomniachtchi, I've got that stuck in my head now. Nepomniachtchi, he has shuffled his rook across, meaning that White's bishop is free to move. Last turn, this bishop could not move. Black's rook is eyeing up this queen. Now, as White, I would just think about dropping this bishop back and trying to break in to the enemy camp, trying to get my queen into the game. It feels like the momentum has changed completely. Magnus Carlsen is the one with the time advantage and the advantage on the board. Black's king is the biggest factor. Black's king, safe for now, but as Jovanka mentioned, those dark squares around it.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot to get over-enthusiastic now when they got under 5 minutes. All right, but they're going under 2 minutes. I'm getting so excited. Wow, this is getting interesting.
Definitely. It's heating up. It's heating up. And I think that's what Magnus Carlsen wanted in this game. He wanted to surprise his opponent in the opening, keep some pieces on the board, have the slightly safer king, and maybe that will become a factor towards the end of this game. He does need to speed up, though. He spent a lot of time. He spent over half his time on this move. It's not going to decide the game. He just needs to improve a piece. He needs to test his opponent. He can't drop under a minute because if Magnus loses this next one, the fight is right back on.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. Magnus needs to hurry up, and he has moved the bishop 1 square backwards, and Nepomniachtchi has sidestepped with the rook and is now attacking the queen. So Magnus does need to move the queen. But yes. Oh, OK.
That's right.
Classy retreat from Magnus Carlsen. He's retreated the queen all the way back. But look at the rook and the queen. They're working so nicely on the lines together.
That's right, a very sensible move there from Magnus Carlsen. We normally don't approve of retreating moves, but sometimes you need to find better lines for your pieces, especially those queens and rooks. Sometimes you just need to set them up a bit better. A sneaky trap by Nepomniachtchi now. He's actually threatening checkmate in 2 moves.
Yes, yes.
If we bring up the board, we see Black's threat very sneaky. He just drops his queen back one square, and now he's lining up for a check on this square, protected by the black rook. If white is clumsy and misses this, then this will be a check. The king has to run, and the king will be trapped here. This would be checkmate. Instead, Magnus Carlsen stopping that by trading a pair of rooks off. We see a pair of rooks have left the board now. He just dropped his rook across on this side. I'm not sure about that decision. Black's offering a queen trade now. White's rejecting that queen trade. White needs to keep his queen on the board if he's going to win this game. Personally, I always prefer queen and knight against a queen and bishop.
Yes, me too. It's rook and bishop work better than rook and knight, and queen and knight work better than queen and bishop. But yeah, I didn't quite like that rook trade. To me, it felt
drawish.
Yes, drawish. And, you know, we talked about it quite often, that you shouldn't exchange pieces when one's king is unsafe. And I feel that white's king was fundamentally still safer than black's king.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, maybe he was just feeling the tension. It's very much a safety-first move there by Magnus. Obviously, he wants to win this game, but maybe he's just thinking, OK, it's more important not to lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how about Magnus's Harry pawn? Can that get dangerous?
Wow, actually, now you say it. That was something I was just going to bring up.
We do have a great chess player. Askil is sitting in the control room, and he tipped me to ask you guys for that.
That's a great question. Actually, it was a bit of a name change there. It was Gary the G pawn on the G line, and it became Harry when it shifted across, when it captured a rook. And now we see that pawn advancing. You're seeing the future, Kaya. That pawn is running up the board. At the moment, that pawn, white's pawn on the right-hand side, it is stopped. It can no longer advance further. If it keeps advancing, it will get lost. Black's king trying to stop that pawn, but that pawn might just be used as an anchor for the bishop. White's bishop is nicely protected now, which frees up his queen. White's queen is going to try and infiltrate the black camp. Maybe white's queen can dash all the way up the board to attack that black knight.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the most tempting move, to whoosh with the queen all the way to the top of the board and to start attack. And he's done it. He has done it. So the only danger there is for white is that because the white king is slightly unprotected, and I'm using the British way of using slightly, which means very.
Okay.
It just means that the king can be vulnerable to a perpetual check. That's something that we saw in the Hikaru, Wesley So Hikaru Nakamura game. So I'm going to expect to see perhaps some few checks on the board.
That's right. Black has options here. Black could give a check with his queen, or because his knight is attacked, he could just drop his king back to protect that knight. Nepomniachtchi, though, under a minute, about to go under 30 seconds.
Oh.
It's not an easy decision. Actually, giving check with the queen
probably would be a mistake.
Possibly might be a mistake. So it's definitely easier for white to play this position.
OK, so he has gone under 20 seconds, and when the clock starts ticking down, this is when trouble happens. And, OK, he has...
Oh!
OK,
look at the bar. It looks like completely winning for Magnus.
And the queen has gone unprotected, but this is very, very passive.
Yeah, never... I mean, that queen was so nicely centralised. Never retreat your queen unless you really have to. Now, white gave a check. Magnus Carlsen gave a check, and he captured the pawn.
Look at Nepomniachtchi talking to himself.
Yes, he knows Yes, and Nepomniachtchi has won all the pawns on the left-hand side of the board. So he's 2 pawns up. And yes, there is just no way forward. OK, so the knight is... Nepomniachtchi is centralising the knight in order to get ready for some checks to cause some trouble. Okay, we've learnt our lesson by now, David. We should never say never.
Yeah, there's so many turnarounds.
And with 29 seconds on the clock, is Jan Nepomniachtchi now losing this game?
Yes.
Yeah, he just forgot about those pawns on the left side of the board. He retreated his queen. His queen was protecting those pawns. He retreated it, allowing Magnus to capture those 2. Magnus is 2 pawns ahead. Magnus also has the safer king. He's got everything protected now. All Magnus needs to do is make sure he doesn't make the same mistake that Wesley So made. Doesn't allow any checks against his king.
Oh, he made his move.
Oh, that's a depressing one to have to play. Black's queen dropping into the corner there. I'm very surprised by that last move. I don't really understand what the queen's doing in the corner of the board. And Nepomniachtchi shaking his head. He knows that one move, he let it slip. The computer said it was equal, but it's just because white's position was easier to play. White had the safer king. And now 2 pawns ahead. Magnus Carlsen, if he doesn't win this one, then we'll know he's badly out of form.
Yes, and after the time situation, Magnus has 1 minute and 12 seconds to Nepomniachtchi's 18 seconds, so everything in his favour. Yeah.
That's right. All he needs to do is make sure his king is safe and then slowly start advancing those pawns on the left side. He has done.
He has pushing those pawns. They want to get... OK, and Nepomniachtchi is using his king as an attacker. I'm not quite sure what that is all about.
That's right. I think Magnus Carlsen will just ignore that last move by Nepomniachtchi. Black's king is always going to be weak. There's no point to go for that king right now. Magnus has done the hard work. He just needs to keep things simple. Magnus Carlsen, he's a genius at doing this, keeping things simple, killing his opponent's threats, killing his opponent's dreams. Black's retreated a king there. Magnus will soon continue advancing those pawns.
Do you think we will see 3 queens on the board in this game now?
I hope so.
I hope so, for your sake.
Yeah, I know. I would like to see it.
Maybe 4 queens. White has 2 pawns on that left side, which could just run up and become a lady. So, it's looking very hopeless for Nepomniachtchi. There's just no way to even get close to saving this game. There's no way to even check the white king right now. He's bringing his queen across.
Yes, but it's all pretty hopeless. Is there something... Is that a blunder?
I think white can... OK, white can threaten the... OK, he threatens the black knight. Black's queen jumps across and gives check. White is just going to move out the way of that one or block that check with his bishop. Nepomniachtchi shaking his head.
Yep, and he's been very, very careful with where he puts his king because the knight is such a crafty piece. You always have to be aware of where it can move to. And Magnus is now on the attack, and I expect him to perhaps come forward with his queen and start infiltrating the position. Yep, he's there.
That's right. So white just bringing that queen slowly towards the black king.
Yeah, and just note the kind of...
Nepomniachtchi blundered.
And I think the game will be over. Yes, it is.
It is over. Wow, Jan Nepomniachtchi, he looked so strong, and then he does lose the second game. It is 1-1 on the score sheet, and, well, he definitely does still have possibilities to tie the semi-final match. But it's going to get harder for Jan Nepomniachtchi now.
Yes, he has to win at least 1 more game and definitely not drop. If he drops a point, that's it. Game over. His match, well, game, set, and match. And it'll be Magnus who goes through to the final because Nepomniachtchi needs to win.
All right. Well, there is still one game going on in this round 2 of the semi-final matches. Wesley So won the first game, or he drew the first game against Hikaru Nakamura, but he won yesterday. They are playing, I'm just looking at the bar, it says winning for Wesley So. Do you agree, David?
Yes, that's right. The first thing I do in every position is just do a bit of counting. And here, Wesley So as an extra pawn. More importantly, Wesley So's pieces, they're nicely coordinated. White is on the defensive here. A bit of a strange move there by Wesley So, just retreating his bishop. We've actually seen a repeat of the position. Wesley So completely winning here. Surely he won't drop his bishop back and repeat the position for a 3rd time. Wesley under a minute, though. Here, if he retreats his bishop, if he brings it back 2 squares along the diagonal, that will be the 3rd time we reach this position, and the game will be a draw. We've seen Wesley do this in winning positions before, either just get nervous and guide the game towards a draw or just play safety first chess. But all he needs to do is maybe start some trades, capture that white knight with his bishop. If black captures that knight with the bishop, he's removing one of white's defenders. I think white's just going to be overwhelmed.
He's done it.
He's done it.
He's done it, David. He has taken the knight, and yeah, Hikaru in trouble. And he's bashing out the moves. The rook takes the knight, and now the queen has given a check to the king. King can either move or the check can be blocked, and it's been blocked by the rook. And Wesley just grabbing those pawns. He has taken 1 pawn, and it's up to Hikaru now to set those tricks and traps. And he's so good at doing this.
That's right.
We saw it in the first game. Well, Wesley So blundered in a completely winning position in the first game. It ended in a draw. Is that what Hikaru needs to hope for in this game as well now?
He needs a miracle. Wesley has a couple of winning moves here. He is 2 pawns ahead. Also, black still has the safer king. Black has pawns around his king. White's knight has just dropped back to attack the black rook, but black can actually ignore it. Black can trade rooks here. He can use his rook to capture white's rook. White is just... OK, instead he just drops back with his rook, a very safe, solid move. Wesley not in a rush. He's got 20 seconds, so he's just trying to gain you do gain 10 seconds after every move. He's just trying to gain time on the clock. Here, white's attacking one of the black rooks with his knight. That black rook will move. Oh, instead, he's dropped his knight back. Very flashy move there. One I hadn't seen.
But at the bar, hates
What's happening?
it, David.
I'm just trying to work out what's happened. White has... Okay, maybe Wesley So, he's missed something here. He tried to play a flashy move with 20 seconds on the clock. You should never do this. Never complicate things. Keep things simple. Instead, he's allowed white to capture a rook with his knight. Wesley So currently a rook down now.
10 seconds.
Oh.
He's captured a white rook with his knight, but I think...
Oh, look at it. Look at it. He's realizing he blundered again.
Yes.
White can start counterattacking now. White can give a check with his knight. White can jump right into black's camp here, onto the back rank. I would just give that check as Hikaru Nakamura and then think what to do next. Nakamura, he's got so much time. For him, 1.5 minutes. He can play 5 games in that time. We see as well the computer confirms.
And he's done it.
White only
He's
had 2
given a check.
moves there.
Okay, and now he has attacked the knight. He's attacked the rook with his knight, and the pressure is on Wesley. Remember, he only has 17 seconds left on the clock, and now the position is very, very sharp because white has the potential for a rook to come in and deliver check. Okay, so that is why Wesley has played rook taking... He's played his rook, 1 move, 1 square, and now the rooks will be traded off.
That's right. So white has an opportunity now to draw the game immediately. Wesley So completely panicked there. He just... now white can trade the rooks from the board. White can also grab the black knight potentially after that. I think Hikaru Nakamura, he's not happy with the draw anymore. He wants to win. He knows that Wesley's been playing very badly the last few moves. He knows Wesley's completely blown it.
Yeah.
Maybe Wesley can't recover. So Hikaru, he's going for blood. The position should be a draw. I think white has nothing better than maybe going for a perpetual check, just trying to force a repetition of moves. But Hikaru Nakamura,
Yep,
he is a fighter.
I think we're going to see it where he's captured the knight, and now Wesley has to take as many pawns as possible. But the queen and knight work so well together.
That's right. So the current position, black is down a knight, but he does have 3 pawns for that knight, and that's roughly equal. So a knight is worth normally the same as 3 pawns. Here it's just a question of whose king is weaker, and unfortunately for Nakamura, I don't think he has enough pieces left to checkmate the black king. There's no way to immediately checkmate. And if he can't checkmate immediately, black is the one who will start to give lots of checks with his queen.
Yeah.
We see Nakamura giving a check now, giving another check.
Yeah.
Wesley So retreating his king to the corner. Nakamura, he's going to be looking for a way to set a trap now. He's got to try and find a trick to checkmate Wesley. If he draws this game, he'll still be happy. He'll still be relieved that he's even in this match after having such a bad position. But it might not be enough.
No, it's probably not enough, is it? Because the white king is so exposed. Because you want to have that ability to still keep the king trapped and introduce the knight into the attack. But if you do that, then this white king is just so exposed and so unprotected that black can probably give a whole load of checks with the queen, and white will never, ever be able to escape those.
Yeah, we saw Nakamura as well. He was gesturing with his hand. He was just trying to count. You could see him counting along with his hand. He's trying to see how he can get at that black king. He's trying to see which checks are the most dangerous.
Now, it's very, very important. Okay, and Wesley has played it. He had to move his king to that square because otherwise the knight would come in with a very deadly check. And now Hikaru has checked and Wesley retreats his king.
That's right. So unfortunately for white, he just doesn't have time to bring his knight into the game. White could try and improve his knight, trying to set up a checkmate, but then black would start giving lots of checks. That is why Wesley, he had to put his king in the corner. He couldn't allow Nakamura to give him checks.
He has grabbed a pawn. Well, we can see that he wants more, just like you said.
Can Hikaru Nakamura fight for a win in this game?
White is the only one who can win. Nakamura is the only one who can win. Wesley has to be careful that he gives the right checks.
Oh, look, the bar.
We see maybe he gave the wrong check. It's not clear yet. I think he's still okay. And the bar's zoomed back towards the middle.
Yeah, computer needed a second think there.
That's right. So Wesley, though, the one thing he can't do is allow white to escape the checks. He needs to find the right way to check. And that's not easy with 30 seconds on the clock.
Exactly.
Nakamura doing a very clever thing. Oh, OK, Wesley, he's not given a check. He's just captured a pawn. How cool is that? I would be terrified to allow my opponents to start checking me with the queen. I mean, maybe that's just a genius move by Wesley. He sees that there's no way for white to checkmate.
And Nakamura, he just pulls up his sleeves and he's ready to fight in the end of this game. He definitely needs to come back with a win, and he played his queen.
That's right.
Yeah, and again, Wesley has problems. Where is he going to put the king? Which square? So he has chosen to move his king up one square, and now the queen has given check. And again, does Wesley So make a dash for it with his king? And he has. The king is now out.
That's right. So Wesley was too scared to stay in the corner with his king there, so now he's just running forward. Maybe he'll keep stepping up the board. Maybe he'll drop back now with the king. Personally, I'd find it so difficult to choose. Wesley So advancing with his king there. I would, White continuing to give checks.
Now, again, he has to be very careful where he puts his king, because you do not want to allow the knight to give check and at the same time let the king be trapped. So those are the two things you're looking for: trapping the king and introducing the knight into the game with a check. And queen gives check and the king runs to the edge of the board. And the sad thing for Hikaru is that if the queens were going to be traded, then yes.
Well, and we see on Wesley So he's not very happy. He knows he blundered a winning position again.
Exactly. The match could have been over by now, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And actually, he's still playing with fire, Wesley So. He's holding the draw at the moment, but he is the one who has to be careful still. Nakamura close, but not quite close enough to checkmating that black king. He's still trying to set traps. He's hoping that Wesley puts his king on the wrong square every turn. He's hoping Wesley gets nervous again. But it looks like maybe black is safe now. White just needs another pawn on the board. He needs that knight a bit more centralised in order to win this game. He just won't have enough time to do that. Great defence by Wesley So, but yeah, he'll be looking back with regret. He could have been 2-0 up now. If Wesley had won that last game and won this game, the match would actually be over immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we will see a draw shortly, but Nakamura still trying. He is a fighter.
Little time on the clock as well, though. Under 40 seconds for Hikaru now, but obviously not so many pieces on the board, so it should be possible to, well, at least not lose it for Hikaru here.
Yes, I don't think Hikaru will lose it. He's just desperately trying to introduce that kind of hoping that Wesley goes to the wrong square, or whether he can get his knight into with a check and not let the black king dash for freedom.
That's right, and we see black retreating his king there. If he'd brought it forward one square, he would have actually lost. So, yeah, very sensible play by Wesley So. Nakamura, maybe if he had 3-4 minutes on the clock, he could think about how to try and keep some tension in this game, how to keep trying to set those traps, hoping that Wesley walks into one of them. But I think now the clock situation has changed around. Nakamura under 10 seconds against Wesley So's 1 minute, and Nakamura not giving checks.
Yeah, he's trying. He's trying hard. So he has retreated the queen. It's not a check, as David pointed out. So again, I think this is a wise strategy, because there is still a lot of danger. Black could easily go wrong. And we have to remember, knights are very crafty pieces with one fork, which is a check, which can attack two pieces at once. The game would be over. Okay, so Hikaru desperately trying with a queen check. King steps backwards.
That's right. Now, we've seen so many checks in this game. I'm wondering if we will get to move 100 because there'll be so many checks. White continuing to check with the queen, but there's just no hope here to win this game. White's knight still not quite in the game, and White's king very open. White's king vulnerable to as many checks as Wesley wants to give. Yeah, this one should still be a draw, but still some tension. And I just love the fact that Nakamura is fighting. He's got about 15 seconds on the clock, but he's still fighting. He's still pressing for that win. And that's one tip for everyone at home. As long as there's still life in the position, you might as well play. Yes, it might go wrong occasionally.
Here it is. He's moved his knight. The knight has given check, but the king wasn't trapped, so the king has made his bid for freedom. And what I really like about Wesley's move is that he actually put his queen on a square that is defended by a pawn, so there's not going to be any traps there.
That's right, and Wesley advancing with his king now. His king's still quite safe. The queen and knight can't quite combine to trap that black king. White does capture a pawn, though. Wesley shaking his head slightly. I don't think that changes the valuation of the position. I think the players have actually agreed a draw.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
And Wesley So did not look too happy about that. It must feel terrible to blunder 2 winning positions in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he was completely winning and he just made a careless slip and that was it. Hikaru got away. And it's not very pleasant after pushing the whole game that suddenly you're the one defending and you're the one having to navigate all the danger. That's not great news. But still 2 games left.
Still 2 games left. We see players still sitting there. Hikaru Nakamura feeling so lucky. He is still in the fight here.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 now. I mean, the momentum's on his side. He's saved 2 completely lost positions. It feels like he's used up all of his 9 lives, but now is his time to pounce. If he can win one of these games, Wesley So, it's going to be difficult for him to recover.
And this is what it looks like after 2 games have finished in round 2 of semi-finals. Magnus Carlsen now won the second game after losing the first one against Jan Nepomniachtchi. The score is 1-1, and if Magnus Carlsen wins this next game, then it will be over. He will be the winner of the semi-final match. Hikaru Nakamura... Oh, this is Wesley So realizing he blunders terribly a winning position for the 2nd time in a row. Oh, he is very disappointed. And Hikaru Nakamura, well, he doesn't look too happy, but he did get quite lucky in that game, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Hikaru, he was never actually winning, but at the end, of course, after that huge turnaround, after saving a lost position, he did want to push the whole way and get that point. Wesley defended well, though, at the end. So Hikaru, I think he's just more frustrated with the way he's playing.
Mm-hmm. So they have 1 point each, Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So, before they play their next game. We're heading into Magnus Carlsen versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. 3rd game. If Magnus wins, the semi-final will be over. He is heading to the final. Jan Nepomniachtchi needs at least half a point here.
Yes, he does need at least half a point. Preferably a victory would be good. But we will see what happens. You can see Magnus is in this flow. The momentum is on his side because, of course, he just come back from a victory.
That's right. And we can hear the pings. I think pieces have been moved, but the board will catch up in a moment. Yeah, I think Nepomniachtchi, he's not the kind of player who'll play it safe. He will throw everything at Magnus Carlsen. Also, this is his last game with the white pieces. And with white, that's by far his best chance. He knows if he leaves it with the black pieces, Magnus will just be able to shut that game down. I think this is last chance saloon for Nepomniachtchi.
All right, we are having some technical issues getting the moves out on the board. We heard a lot of ding, ding, dings, which means there has been a lot of moves, actually already 9 from each player. What are you guessing?
Oh, we don't have to guess.
Oh, we have it here.
That's right, and we have seen an opening. We won't go back to it, but this is another Spanish opening on the board. So the Spanish, we see it is kind of defined by this last move by white. Very standard play, both sides opening with their king's pawns. And once white develops the bishop, attacking this knight, we call this the Spanish opening. White puts pressure on the black center from the side. He's going to use this bishop to put pressure. He's going to try and build his own pawn center. He's just going to try and take over as much territory as possible. And we see the next few moves a bit later on, if we catch up with the game. Now black is the one trying to take central control. Black has pushed his pawn forward, using both of his pawns to control some very important squares. And he's actually offered a trade of bishops. So black offers to trade these bishops here. White's beautiful bishop, keeping an eye along this diagonal, is going to leave the board. Black's going to trade it off now. White, I mean, a very rare move, I think, from Nepomniachtchi, trying to bring his knight closer to the black king. That knight has been traded off if we catch up with game position. Very controversial stuff. Nepomniachtchi, I've actually seen him have something very similar to this before. He's given up his knight for a bishop, but he's allowed his opponent to take control of the center. Magnus Carlsen, look at these pawns. 4 super strong pawns in the center here. But white does have this nice bishop, maybe lining up with the black king later on. So both sides pursuing completely different strategies. Which will be stronger? Black's pawns along that line or white's pieces long term?
Well, knowing he has to win at least one of the 2 final games, can we see from Jan Nepomniachtchi's play here with white pieces that he is going for blood, as we call it?
Well, no.
Surprising.
Is my answer to that, because it is a very risky strategy, because well, look at those pawns that black has in the center. You know, it's a beautiful wall of pawns. And I personally, I love my space, and I love the possibility of advancing pawns and taking as much area as possible. And Nepomniachtchi has gone for a very, very risky strategy where he's going to put pressure on those pawns and perhaps go for a kingside attack. But it doesn't look necessarily that aggressive to me.
I don't know. I slightly disagree, Jovanka. I think this is a very imbalanced position. I think the white has great chances. Now he brings his queen forward. He's attacking black's pawns from the side with his queen. I think, OK, yes, black does have these beautiful pawns, but white has his advantages as well. White has 2 bishops. Later, if those pawns disappear, if the position opens up, that will favour white. Also, with this queen advance, it's easier for white to bring his pieces towards the right side of the board, towards the black king, than it is for black to advance those pawns. So actually, in the balance, I'd say both sides have their chances. But it shows Nepomniachtchi, he's not going for something like he did yesterday. He's not shutting the game down and allowing a quick draw. Mm-hmm. He's keeping tension. And now he's jumped forward with his bishop, attacking the black knight. I like what he's done. I think it will give him some chances a bit later. He knows this is his opportunity to pounce.
Yeah, he's putting pressure on that center. Because the threat is to take the knight. One of the things you do is when your opponent controls the center, you start attacking the defenders of that center. So he's just done that with that bishop move, because now that bishop is attacking the knight, and if the knight goes away, then the pawn center is very, very weak.
And we do see Magnus with sometimes his head in his hand here. Is this Magnus trying to memorize something?
I think they're in novel territory. I think this is all new. So, yeah.
Magnus, he's been playing this type of opening as black pretty much his whole life. So he might have not seen this exact position before, but he'll have seen something similar. So it's more about maybe trying to recognise some patterns, trying to gather some ideas that he's seen in similar positions before and seeing which ones work in this exact occasion. So lots of choice here for black. He does need to worry about his pawns, though. They might become weak if he doesn't defend them.
So this is great stuff. So we've got David liking the pieces, me liking the pawns.
Yeah.
Right. He's going to be proven correct.
It's a battle between you guys two now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're backing Magnus, though. That's not fair.
All right. Well, those are definitely interesting. Those 4 black pawns there almost look like, like in high school, a gang of girls, just, the most popular girls in school walking towards you.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I really do adore pawns. And if I can push them forward, I feel that, like you said, they're quite threatening.
Yeah, exactly. Like those 4 girls in high school would be.
Exactly. They're just forming a wall and no, you're not going to push through. Because, if Magnus can make that light square bishop that is on the left-hand side of the board for white, just stay on that square for a long time, well, basically, Nepomniachtchi is a piece down, and those pawns are doing an excellent job. So the pressure is on. If Magnus can maintain that wall, then brilliant stuff. If he can't, then he's in trouble.
That's right. Maybe we can bring the board up to illustrate the point Jovanka makes about that bishop. It's actually all a fight about this bishop right now. If this bishop can't break past these 2 pawns, then white is essentially playing without that piece for the rest of the game. If black can maintain these 3 pawns, completely blocking in this bishop, then black will be very happy. And we see a controversial move by Magnus Carlsen, pushing pawn forward. That's a pawn sacrifice, as far as I can tell. Actually, maybe not. Maybe Magnus Carlsen, he's just trying to shut things down in the centre. White has captured a pawn. We'll see Nepomniachtchi's reaction. A pawn has been traded from the centre of the board. At first, I thought this was a sacrifice. Maybe white could capture this pawn, but this would be a huge mistake. Black could just capture the knight. Now there's a bit of tension with these bishops. Once the bishops disappear, black defends the knight at the end of the line. So very interesting stuff. The main thing we notice, though, is white's bishop here. It's just blocked out the game. Maybe a very clever idea there by Magnus Carlsen.
All right, we see the bar shifting over to Magnus Carlsen's side. We see his girl gang, Black Pawns. They've been, the group has been shaken up. They're not standing strong together anymore. As Jan Nepomniachtchi's webcam is turned off. Maybe he's having internet connection problems.
That's right. We heard it with Magnus Carlsen yesterday. At some point, his browser just closed, and he had to race to try and get back in that game. Cost him a couple of minutes on the clock.
And what are the rules if the players lose their connection?
Well, they have 30 seconds to disconnect, and he is back.
He is back.
Yes, but they have 30 seconds to resume their connection. And if they happen to have less than 30 seconds on their clock, then too bad. He is on time. But if they have more time and, say, for instance, they don't manage to resume their connection within 30 seconds, then the game is actually paused and the game will resume when their player officially connects back on.
All right. Well, if he lost connection, then it was on Magnus Carlsen's time. He has been thinking for a minute or so on his next move. What can he do now, David?
I think he'll just be trying to get the rest of his pieces into the game. We've talked about rooks a few times. Now, Black's last move, a very nice move. He's just brought his queen forward. Black's rooks are now connected on the same line there. You always want to connect your rooks. It just adds a bit more flexibility. It adds extra protection for later on. Black, he needs to, as well as mobilise those rooks, he needs to bring his knight off the edge of the board. We see Black's knight on the left side there. It needs to get itself back towards the centre. We've mentioned this in the past. We like our rhymes here. Knights on the rim are dim. Knights on the edge fall off the hedge.
Yeah, that's my one.
That's your one. So yeah, as long as Magnus Carlsen can mobilise the rest of his pieces, he's just going to hope that that bishop we've talked about, that white bishop on the edge there, is just going to be blocked in. It's all a battle about whether that bishop jumps back into life a bit later on. Meanwhile, Nepomniachtchi bringing a rook into the centre, very sensible move there, targeting one of Black's pawns. This one is very much in the balance. I think it will. The course of the game, the side who'll be pressing for the advantage, it's all going to be decided in the next few moves.
Imagine if this one ends up in a draw and we come to like game 4 and we know Jan Nepomniachtchi, if he doesn't win it, he's out. I almost hope that will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I really like tie breaks, so I'm not so sad if Magnus loses this match.
I know, yeah, we would love some tie breaks today.
Exactly, and just imagine the fireworks. I mean, it would just be brilliant. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I really love the story, the sporting stories having to come back. Nepomniachtchi has done it before.
Yeah.
He did it in the quarterfinals. It would be absolutely amazing if he could do it again and against the world champion.
Yeah, Magnus looks like he's barely awake at the moment, actually, just trying to refocus and trying to get back his rhythm. He is a few minutes behind on the clock. He also does have a pawn under attack. So Magnus Carlsen, he definitely needs to be accurate to make sure that that comeback you guys were talking about, that it doesn't happen. The momentum, it's all about momentum in these one-to-one head-on-head clashes. So Magnus... Personally, I would just improve one of those rooks right now for Magnus, or I would bring that knight on the edge of the board, that left-hand side of the board, I'd bring that back towards the centre. I would sacrifice my pawn in the middle, because I think it's all about pieces at the moment rather than those pawns.
And we talked so much about psychology today, with the psychology for any player facing Magnus Carlsen and how they sometimes play less accurately because they're seeing ghosts, as you said, David. But for Magnus playing Jan Nepomniachtchi, a player he lost many games to in classical chess, do you think Magnus sometimes also sort of plays his opponent, not just the board?
Definitely. We saw that in his quarterfinal against Anish Giri. He admitted afterwards, he said, I know how he thinks. He offered a queen trade when it would have not been a good idea for Anish, and Anish went for it because that's just his style. So Magnus, he knows Nepomniachtchi's style. He knows his strengths, his weaknesses. Historically, he's had a difficult time against him, but that trend is slowly turning in Magnus's favour. I think Magnus is definitely the master of that psychology. Meanwhile, Nepomniachtchi, I think he's just trying to play quick because he's not thinking about the opponent. And that last move, a very mysterious move. Personally, I'm shocked, but maybe it's a genius move. What do you think, Jovanka?
Yeah, I'm not liking it. I mean, it's just admitting defeats, to me anyway. It's saying, OK, well, that bishop is not going to go out on that diagonal, so I'm going to reroute it. And once I move my knight and once I move my pawn, then it will finally come back to life. So not necessarily the move that I would have chosen, because it's a backward move. And I feel that the position warrants white actually doing something more.
That's right. It's a retreat. and an unnecessary retreat, maybe. If we bring up the board just to show why we're so kind of down about that move, in a way. White had a decent position. White could think about a lot of things, maybe just trying to improve this rook here, which is a bit trapped, not doing anything. White could improve these rooks. Instead, we'll catch up with the position in a moment. White just retreated this bishop. This bishop is completely blocked by its own pawn. It needs to move. White needs to move this knight and then move this pawn for this bishop to ever have any life in the game whatsoever. This bishop completely blocked. It's as if White's playing without a piece. Therefore, Magnus says, OK, I'm just going to improve one of my own pieces. A rook on an open line. Always a good idea. I like the last couple of moves for Magnus. In the meantime, though, Nepomniachtchi grabbing a pawn. He's won a pawn in the centre of the board here. Let's see how this one turns out. He's traded pieces, and this knight has captured in the middle, defended by this rook.
And Magnus has retaliated and grabbed a pawn on the left-hand side of the board. That bishop, well, it's a little bit of a risky foray into that side of the board, because I would say the action is happening exclusively in the centre or on the right-hand side, because, you know, you have the white queen lined up to a certain square. The knight could mobilise over there, and the sleeping bishop that is currently for white, that is, on the left-hand side of the board, could get into the action. So I would say it's slightly risky.
That's right. I mean, the speed with which Magnus Carlsen took that decision is very impressive. I would have sat there doubting myself for 4 or 5 minutes, thinking, actually, with black, do I want to push my bishop all the way across? Nepomniachtchi, he's going for the attack now. He's making the most of the fact that black's bishop has just left that square. He's pushed his pawn forward. He's trying to open up that bishop. We've talked about that bishop so much in this game. He's trying to open up that diagonal for it by hook or by crook, even at the cost of a few pawns. If we bring up the board, we can see why Jovanka and I, we're so excited about that last move. It's all about this white bishop right now. White could try and activate that bishop by pushing a pawn forward. Maybe this bishop will become more powerful along this diagonal. But first, Nepomniachtchi, he's pushed a pawn forward. If this pawn is taken, I think that would be a huge mistake. White could just push this pawn forward now and look at this bishop. Suddenly, it's come to life. White just needs to move the knight out the way, and suddenly White will be giving checkmate, a huge attack along this diagonal. The queen and the bishop teamwork lining up on that one pawn. So Nepomniachtchi, he has to try and keep this position blocked, but it's not easy anymore. How do you stop this bishop from entering the game? It's a dead piece right now, but later it might become the most important one. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely worried. I mean, I really dislike allowing those kind of pawn moves so close to the board. Oh, I think the Black King will have to hide in plain sight, which is which is something that we've actually seen it do a few times. That's right. So Black, he can't touch the pawns in front of his king either. There is a trap. I think Black has to just hope for the best now. Maybe he needs to bring his queen into the game. Black's bishop out there on the left side, it just looks offside. It looks it's out in Siberia somewhere while the action's happening elsewhere. I really like White's position right now. Magnus Carlsen 5 minutes behind on the clock as well. He's the one who needs to be accurate. The computer still says it's in control. Black is still fine. But for a human, it's very difficult when you're being attacked and when you only have 1 or 2 moves maybe to survive. Yeah, it's very, very difficult to play with such an unsafe king. And like you say, that bishop, that's for White, the white bishop on the left-hand side of the board, it looks so dead. But give me 1 move and it will be out there and joining in the attack with the queen and the knight. All right. We do have actually some drama in the other semi-final matchup against Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura started playing their game a minute ago, and it is already a draw. So they have decided that they will go all in round 4. Hikaru Nakamura has to win in the 4th game if he wants to take this to tie breaks. I have no idea what happened in that game, but they didn't play many moves. Wow, I'm shocked. They've actually repeated pretty much the exact game they've had twice before in previous tournaments. So Nakamura with black, he's allowed Wesley So to force a draw. With white, Wesley So said, OK, I don't care about the white pieces. I'm just going to get 1 game closer to the goal of qualifying for the final. But that might rebound if Nakamura wins with white next. It's tie breaks. It will be tie breaks. And, you know, Hikaru has been so charmed these last few games. He has really gotten away with murder. Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we will
definitely keep an eye on what is happening. Hopefully we actually make it to that fourth game between those two, starting in 14 minutes or so, as we do follow the third game between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. The score is 1-1 after 2 games. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he needs points.
He needs points badly, and that's why Magnus Carlsen is offering a trade of queens right now. This is all psychology. Magnus, he's trying to keep his king safe. He's worried about his king safety. We've seen this so many occasions. When he's being attacked, he trades queens and he survives because he's a master in the endgame. And Jan Nepomniachtchi, he needs to keep the queens on the board. Dodge that queen exchange.
Yes, definitely.
Never trade those queens.
Definitely. He needs to start looking at that king with the queen and coming forward. And because if Nepomniachtchi gets that bishop into the play and the knight into play, then it will be absolutely deadly attack, because 3 is the magic number for attackers.
Yeah, that's right. And there we see Stockfish, the computer. It does suggest 3 white moves there. All of White's 3 best moves are keeping the queens on the board. It would be a huge mistake to trade the queens right now. The computer just wants to advance White's queen forward, either 1 step or 2 steps, keeping the tension, keeping the potential attacking. Just keeping a potential attack ready. I do think Magnus Carlsen, he's praying to God right now. He's kind of flinching. He's hoping beyond hope that the queens disappear. Critical moment in this game, I think. Nepomniachtchi needs to make a quick decision either way.
And look at the intense thinking on both sides here.
But I'm really puzzled by Nepomniachtchi's pause, because to me it's very obvious that you don't exchange queens, you're attacking, Black's king is unsafe, it's everything we've gone through. So it's very natural that, okay, we step forward with the queen and we start inching our way forward. And, you know, White's pawn that's there all the way up in Black's camp on the right-hand side of the board is just so beautiful. I mean, and that's a kind of signal as well that, if possible, you can try and attack on the dark squares. So what is Nepomniachtchi waiting for?
That's right, a 3-minute think right now. And it must be what we talked about earlier, this Magnus Carlsen effect. I think anyone else in the world, I know if Nepomniachtchi, I've played him so many times, if he was playing me, he would show me no respect. He would keep the queens on the board and try and checkmate me. But because it's Magnus Carlsen, he's pausing. And these 3 minutes that he's been spending, maybe he'll look back and think, actually, I could have played a move immediately, could have put Magnus back under pressure on the clock, could have put the ball back in his court. Magnus as well, frowning slightly. Maybe he's surprised that Nepomniachtchi is still pausing.
Yeah, but every second that he pauses, that he gives Magnus some hope. I certainly would be encouraged by the fact that my opponent is thinking for a long time and, get inspired.
That's right, and Jovanka mentioned this pawn. It's all about this pawn, White going for the attack. Therefore, I would keep the queens on the board. I would not trade along this diagonal. I would advance my queen forward, either 1 step or 2 steps. For example, just here. Now, there's no queen trade. If Black gets uncomfortable, if Black moves a pawn in front of his king, now we would see this as a huge mistake. White could jump in and teamwork again. This pawn, this queen, they're both lining up on the same square. White is going to drop the queen into that square next move, trapping the Black king, and this would be checkmate. So there's already some huge problems for Magnus Carlsen. I mean, it's actually quite hard to stop that type of idea. Just why is Nepomniachtchi thinking? I don't understand. 4.5 minutes right now. That's a huge time investment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super. And incidentally, that checkmate had a name. I'm going to tell it to you. Lolly.
Lolly?
Lolly, yeah.
Why on earth is that checkmate called Lolly?
After a historical figure.
Oh.
The lollipop.
Mr. Lolly.
Who is Mr. Lolly?
Well, you're putting me on the spot now because I can't remember.
Was it a chess player,
It was
grandmaster?
a chess player, yeah. It's some historical figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am Googling Mr. Lolly right now.
It's spelled with an I at the end.
Okay.
While you Google Mr. Lolly or Mr. Lollipop, I think actually if White were to advance the queen, maybe just trying to get inside Nepomniachtchi's mind, if White were to advance the queen, keep the queens on the board, I think Nepomniachtchi is worried about a sacrifice. Magnus Carlsen would sacrifice his rook for that knight in the middle of the board there, just in order to keep his king safe. Maybe Nepomniachtchi is just trying to work out the consequences there, but either way, he's lost all of his time advantage. He had a huge advantage on the clock there, and I think that just shows the nerves are starting to set in.
Yes, but he has to take that risk. He cannot he just cannot swap off queens. That is just non-negotiable. So just keep the queens on, and then if the sacrifice comes, then accept that and then play.
So, Giambattista Lolli was an Italian chess player born in 1698. And the checkmate pattern Lolli's mate involves infiltrating the opponent's fianchetto position using pawn and queen.
That's it. And we saw it there.
That's right.
And I quoted Wikipedia. I guess I have to say that.
It's a pretty good source.
It is, yes.
So that Lolli mate is what Nepomniachtchi is aiming for.
He's going for the idea immediately, and we are going to expect that Magnus pushes that pawn, and now, come on, start moving the pieces forward.
That's right. So Nepomniachtchi, he has to get his queen into that square. He has to go for Lolli's mate. If he's able to get his queen to that, or even close to that square, Magnus Carlsen is going to have to sacrifice material just to postpone the checkmate. There we see the queen has whooshed across just a couple of squares.
Oh, but look at the bar.
Yeah, I don't like that move personally. I think maybe there was a better way to try and do that. I would have tried to block off Black's bishop, potentially.
Yes, blocking off the Black bishop looks amazing.
That's right. So I think right now, maybe Magnus Carlsen has a strong move. He needs to get rid of that white pawn. If we bring up the board, we can see White's idea, Nepomniachtchi's idea. If he had one move here with White, White is winning. The queen would jump in and give checkmate to the Black king, Lolli's mate, as we've seen earlier. Instead, I think Nepomniachtchi maybe has missed that if Black tries to attack this pawn is not going to survive any longer. The bishop is just going to come back and win this pawn with the help of the Black queen. It's still, the computer might say that Black is winning, but we've seen a couple of moves. It's still in the balance. I think it's not easy for a human to play this position as either colour. It's very much in the balance. And there we see the bar, Magnus Carlsen. He's actually sacrificed a rook for a knight just to get rid of that white pawn.
Exactly, yeah. And, wow, I must admit, I don't like the move that we've just seen on the board by Nepomniachtchi, where he has advanced his pawn 2 squares forward, because I'm thinking that makes things slightly easier for Black to start advancing his pawns on the left-hand side of the board, because, of course, you've got these passed pawns. Try and push him.
And we now see Nepomniachtchi leaving the computer. Yesterday, we got completely crazy when we saw that because we thought that was cheating. They are not allowed to leave the room, but Jan Nepomniachtchi, when he does that, he has been allowed by the arbiter, the chess referee, to leave. So no drama here, but perhaps drama with the move that Magnus made.
That's right. So actually, psychology as well. Magnus immediately replied there. He had 3 or 4 good moves. He had lots of options, but maybe he saw on the webcam. Magnus says he likes to have his opponent's webcam open. Maybe he saw Nepomniachtchi's leaving the board. So he replied immediately, and Nepomniachtchi's going to lose an extra 30 seconds, an extra minute on his clock. We see Magnus advancing a pawn there on the left side of the board. Magnus just pushing pawns slightly further towards the goal. Yeah, if it becomes a pawn race later, Black will win. Those Black pawns look menacing on that left side. And White's bishop, we've talked about it so much. White's bishop's still trapped by its own pawn.
Yeah.
That bishop needs to escape somehow.
Yes, it absolutely does need to escape. And the queen has retreated and is now attacking the Black bishop. Ooh, decisions, how to defend that bishop.
That's right. Chess is all about undefended, unprotected pieces. That bishop is not defended. Black's knight on the edge of the board is not defended. So Nepomniachtchi, he's just trying to gain time. He's going to try and improve his pieces while attacking the opponent's undefended pieces. Magnus Carlsen, I expect him to either move that bishop or just drop his king forward 1 square to protect it. And then Nepomniachtchi will be forced to decide how to get White's bishop into the game. It's not going to be easy. Maybe White's best goal is to try and trade a pair of rooks, to try and trade the queens. OK, Magnus Carlsen offers to trade the queens. And
the bar shifts to Jan Nepomniachtchi's side. This game is just all over the place.
Maybe he was fed up with having that knight on the edge, or as our friends on Twitter have said, they've come up with some new expressions. Knights on the ropes is bereft of hopes. That's from Carl Portman. And we have Robert, he says, a knight on the frame is lame.
I like these. How did we not think of these before?
They're all going into David and Jovanka's book of chess rhymes.
That's right.
Coming out sometime 2021.
Yeah.
So Black has offered a trade of queens. I think Magnus Carlsen possibly is he's banking on the fact that white's bishop will never get back in the game. But personally, I would have kept that decision for later. I would have just improved my pieces. It's so committal offering to trade queens. Magnus, we've seen it before, he's an endgame expert. I mean, if anyone can handle a queenless position, it's him. But white does have a small material advantage right now. White has an extra rook, and black has a knight and pawn in return. A knight and pawn in total are worth 4. White's rook is worth 5. We see white's rook up on the board there, attacking an undefended pawn. White is slightly ahead in terms of points, in terms of material. So trading queens is very risky. It's a dangerous strategy.
It is a dangerous strategy. But then again, this bishop, we've gone on and on and on about it. This white bishop on the left-hand side of the board, it is such a bad piece. And if Magnus can keep it trapped, then he's going to be, well, and his knight has now jumped into the centre. And I think we've actually captured the imagination of Twitter as well with our Octo Knights. Everyone is calling it. That's right. It was a beautiful knight, though. 8 squares, super powerful.
Oh, and Magnus shaking his head.
Yeah, both sides not entirely comfortable. Nepomniachtchi as well, frowning a bit. Nepomniachtchi, his next goal must be to trade a set of rooks. If he can get black's rook off the board, he will gain so much more control. Black's rook at the moment doing a great job of protecting that knight. Also, I was once told by an American GM that it's a bit like all of your pieces, they're like ice cream flavors. You want one of everything. So if black can, if white can exchange off black's rook, then white's winning chances go through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult right now. That bishop is so bad.
Yeah, I agree with you there, that because black's most dangerous piece is that rook. Because you can imagine that rook starts to mobilize. It could easily vacuum up some of white's pawns on the left-hand side of the board, as well as cause a lot of problems for the white king. So it's the most dangerous piece, so I really do want Nepomniachtchi just to swap it off.
They look like twins now.
They do. They've got the same posture.
And they actually look a little bit like each other with a beard. And
they seem to be moving in sync.
Yeah.
It's the rule of attraction, right? You start to copy the other person's body language.
Because we do know Magnus Carlsen does like to have the web camera of his opponent up on the screen.
That's right, and we see white has taken our advice there, Nepomniachtchi. He's just moved his rook across, his rook was doing nothing. If we bring up the board, white has big, I mean, it's not a winning threat, but it's a big strategic threat. It's a long-term threat. If white can zoom his rook up to the top of the board, trade off this rook, he would give a check, black would be forced to trade rooks. Therefore, black stops that. He covers this square. Now black is protecting that square twice. White also brings his king towards the centre. Black's rook later is going to try and lift and try and capture some pawns. I think that's what Jovanka was worried about. That's why we need to get black's rook gone as soon as possible. Magnus will be now thinking about how to do that.
Oh, but he's going for glory immediately. He has pushed his pawn. Well, that is a turn up for the books.
I'm shocked, and Nepomniachtchi is shocked as well. That is allowing white's bishop to potentially escape. White's bishop was blocked in by his own pawn. If we see a trade of those pawns now, maybe white's bishop has more life. It can finally breathe. That being said, black's pawn is edging towards the end of the board, wants to become a queen.
I'm wondering whether he actually wants to be brave, and actually this is a pawn sacrifice. I'm wondering whether he is going to try to... Maybe not.
OK, so you mean if white captures that pawn, black's pawn will not capture back in advance?
Yeah, maybe it would just push, get another pawn, past pawn, because... But anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Nepomniachtchi, he is under 4 minutes on the clock right now.
I mean, I think it's just that one decision earlier, the trade of queens. He spent, 5 minutes deciding whether to keep the queens on the board or not? I mean, imagine if he had 5 extra minutes here. He's got decent winning chances if he can trade off a set of rooks, if he can keep as much attention on the position as possible. He can't allow Magnus to get a pawn to the end or keep those rooks on the board. I still think I would take white here, personally. I think there's more margin for error with white. If it goes really wrong for white, maybe he can still make a draw. If it goes really wrong for black, it will be game over. So Nepomniachtchi just needs to speed up. And, I mean, it starts with the decision. Do you trade off that pawn? I would take it immediately.
I would take that one off as well immediately. And he's under 3 minutes on the clock, and he has to make a decision soon. What is he thinking about? Perhaps he's considering pushing the pawn up and attacking the knight.
Yeah, so a bit of a decision here. I think you're right, Jovanka. You need to move that pawn or you need to capture your opponent's pawn with that pawn. It's a big decision, but under 2 minutes soon, it's not going to help his chances if he does fall under 2 minutes. We've seen him being outmaneuvered.
Exactly. So he has to be practical and please, he's just mentally willing him to go take the pawn, play that position. It should be level. He has pushed the pawn to attack the knight. Magnus has jumped into the position and is now attacking the knight. But just look at that bishop. Oh, okay. Pawn takes pawn bishop, and then we're going to have a very complicated position because, well, everything to play for.
That's right. Nepomniachtchi shaking his head quite vigorously there. White has been forced to retreat all of his rooks, and I've had this exact pattern happen in many of my games before. There's no way for White to win. If we bring the board up, maybe we can keep the players on as well, just in case any action happens, just in case any result happens. We see that Black's pawn is so strong, and they will repeat moves. Black's pawn in the enemy camp is just so strong. I think the players are about to repeat. There's just no way for White to ever get rid of this pawn. Black as well is trying to zoom in with his bishop, so therefore the players repeat moves. Black gives a check, White blocks. Black returns, White blocks, and so on. The players are repeating the position. This will be a draw. The players have actually agreed to a draw. Just no way for White to make progress. Nepomniachtchi missed opportunity again.
Yeah. Yes. He does not look happy, and we know what this means. With the draw in this game, we will have that fourth game, and Nepomniachtchi, he has to win it.
He has to win with the black pieces. It can be done. Difficult task.
Difficult task. What do you think Nepomniachtchi now will do? He has 15 minutes before a game with black pieces against the champion, and it's win or nothing.
I would get some fresh air. I would see him just black water. Fresh start. It's all about one game now. Just forget the rest. It's just a one-game shootout.
And for Magnus Carlsen, going into that game with white pieces, all he needs is a draw. So what do we expect from the world champion?
Pure enjoyment.
Yeah. Do you think he actually, because he's been looking, a little bit tired all day, do you think he will actually enjoy that game?
Yeah, I think he will go out there smiling, because whatever happens, it's okay. If he loses, he still gets another shot. He has to play the blitz, whatever. That's nuisance, but okay. But if he draws or wins, then that's it. He's into the final.
All right. Well, we are in for some very exciting chess for the rest of the day, David. We are waiting now to be joined by our good friend, Grandmaster Simon Williams. And, well, he's not quite ready. So as we wait for him, David, do you think Jan Nepomniachtchi is able to just forget another lost opportunity here and really get back ready for a big fight?
He needs to completely forget. He also needs to be optimistic and forget that he's playing Magnus Carlsen. Yesterday, we saw in the last game of the day, he was a point down, but he was happy to take a draw because he thought he had no chances of winning. He needs to be optimistic, needs to just gamble now. He'll go home, a draw or loss, it's the same thing. He might as well gamble and throw everything at Magnus. All
right. Well, Simon Williams is ready. Ginger GM, Grandmaster Simon Williams. Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. You all good?
We are all good, and we're so happy for all the excitement that we have in the end of this day. What's your take on everything that is happening?
I mean, again, the days just get better and better with the excitement, and we've seen, I think, the right approach from Jan against Magnus. You can't get into an ending against Magnus. You have to go for his king. I mean, at the end of the day, chess is decided by checkmate. There's no point messing about. Just get your pieces in and attack Magnus. And I think when Jan's been doing that, he's been getting some very good positions, as we saw in the first round. So it's been very exciting. The other match also of interest with Hikaru and Wesley So fighting it out. And with one more game to go, it's clear what they need to do. They need to put that kitchen sink into the position and both try to win. That's Hikaru and Jan in the last game. So, yeah, very exciting.
And we have actually now gone into the last game between Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. So they have played all draws today. Wesley So won the first day. That means Hikaru Nakamura, it's win or nothing for him in this game. And my three favorite British chess players, can you please explain what has happened in the beginning of this game?
Well, to my eyes, it looks like, okay, I mean, Wesley is so strong, and Wesley's just trying to play it quite safe. He doesn't want to risk anything. He looks quite calm there, Can we tell anything from his face? You know, maybe he's a bit of poker tell. I think he's very relaxed, and at the moment, things are okay. But one good thing in Hikaru's, I say, on his side, is that all the pieces are on the board. And in order to win the game, you want complications. You want to keep pieces on the board, which gives you more tactical opportunities later on.
So, Simon, I have a question. Did you see the last game between Wesley So and Nakamura? I mean, such a quick draw. Would you have gone?
Happened?
Yeah, would you have gone for that in either player's shoes? Would you have ended that game and just left it down to this one big decider, or would you have tried to fight, especially from Nakamura's side?
I think it's very tough when you've got the black pieces and you're playing someone as well prepared as Wesley So. Wesley So must spend all his time on openings. His openings are so good. And I think, you know, Wesley thought, OK, a draw gets me that little bit nearer to the finishing mark. On the other hand, Hikaru thinks, OK, if I draw this one, I've got white in the last round. So I can understand why they did go for a draw. I probably would have gone a bit crazy and gone down even in a blaze of glory or, you know, or sort of won in a blaze of glory. But it's personal style, I think.
All right.
Yeah, I have one question. So if you were the coach of both Hikaru and Nepomniachtchi, what music would you play for them to get them inspired?
What music?
Yes.
Oh, I like this question.
I do too.
It would have to be a little bit of AC/DC, maybe a bit of Guns N' Roses, or a bit of Firestarter by The Prodigy, I feel. Maybe a combination of each. So, yeah. What about you guys? Maybe not any Frank Sinatra. That's far too calming. Need something with a bit of punch.
I would like Tina Turner. You're simply the best. We've been talking about that song. Just get the confidence going.
I think the whole world knows by this point that I like a song after Mulan. I'll make a man out of you. The lyrics just resound with chess. It's very inspirational.
What about you, Ivanka?
Eminem.
Oh!
Yes.
Okay, which Eminem song?
Till I Collapse. That's my morning yoga song.
Wow. All right. Well, I can kind of see it. Till I collapse. Just fight till the bitter end.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Well, actually, Simon, we've been also talking about chess books today. A lot of the viewers are interested in getting into some chess reading. What's your favorite chess book?
There's two chess books that come to mind. One is called Chess for Tigers, which is like a really good beginner's book. It's very amusing, and it's got lots of nice pictures of tigers in it, which is cool. But it's a really good book for the psychological side of chess, and it's great for beginners. So, yeah, let's just stick with Chess for Tigers. That has to be brought if you want to improve your
all
chess.
I can say to that, Simon, is snap.
Snap, okay.
She already said it.
You have good taste, Ivanka. So, yeah.
Chess for Tigers. That's going to be on my wish list for Christmas, definitely. And we do hear some moves. David, what's happening?
That's right. So just on the last turn, Wesley So, he dropped his rook on an open line, attacking the white queen. Nakamura, he has brought his queen to safety. We've seen a trade of pawns as well. As Simon mentioned, OK, a couple of pawns have left the board, but all of the pieces are there, more importantly. And that does mean more opportunity later. It means more tension right now. Wesley So, maybe he'll get nervous at some point and allow a trick with some of those pieces. I like White's position. He controls the left side of the board. Who would you take here, Simon?
Well, I think this, you know, Hikaru's done exactly the thing he should be doing. He's not gone too crazy, actually. I mean, I would probably just freak out and just do something completely ridiculous. He's playing it quite patiently, but he's keeping the queens on the board. As you mentioned, David, he's got that little bit more space on the queen side. And when you control space, it's like controlling space on a football pitch. You've got many more options to do things with. So I have to say at the moment, yeah, I mean, it's fairly even, but Hikaru's keeping the chances alive, which is what we want.
And Wesley So is looking very into the game. Hikaru Nakamura is thinking. And we have this all-American battle here. And obviously we're missing Fabiano Caruana in this tournament. Hopefully he will at some point join us in the Champions Chess Tour. But and we have a move. What's happening?
That's right. So White has just recaptured piece in the centre of the board with his bishop. I'm slightly surprised. I would have captured with my knight. I love my knights in the centre of the board. Bishops are long-range pieces. They do just as good a job behind the army as they do in the centre. So a bit of a strange one from Nakamura, but still early days, as Simon mentions.
Well, I did mention all these three very good Americans with three Brits in the studio, and also you, Simon. Who is the best American chess player?
The best American chess player, well, I think it would have to be Fabiano Caruana, because he's been in the World Championship match. He's challenged for the highest title in chess. On top of that, I mean, these two players playing, they are just biting at his heels. Hikaru's got a massive following online, and Wesley So, well, he's pretty good. I mean, it's very close at the top there.
All right. Well, Simon, I know you have to get back to your Ginger GM stream on Twitch, and we thank you so much for joining us again. And we look so much forward to seeing you tomorrow in the finals.
It's going to be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Have a great stream. Put some Eminem on and enjoy yourselves. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, Eminem, your favorite artist, Bianca.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, does it look like these players have been listening to some inspirational music before the start of this game?
I think so. I mean, I really did like what Hikaru did. I think he provoked Wesley So to make some advances. And look at Black's position. You know, the Black Queen had to make a retreat to defend the knight, and Hikaru has taken the space in the Queen's. And he's just look at him. He looks like he can't believe the quick turn of events, because now he is fighting for equality.
That's right. I mean, if we can bring the board up, I just love what Hikaru Nakamura has done on the last couple of turns. In this position, we've just seen the move, pawn push from Wesley So, attacking this bishop in the centre of the board. We mentioned this bishop. Maybe he doesn't want to be in the centre. It would be very natural to retreat here. But Hikaru Nakamura says, no, you're going to attack me, but I'm going to counter-attack you. I'm not going to go back. He just drops a pawn forward, opening up a line against the Black King. More importantly, attacking this knight with his queen, this undefended knight. Wesley So just dropped this queen back to defend it. As Jovanka mentioned, this queen is very bad now. And again, White's bishop is attacked, but Hikaru Nakamura said, no, I'm not scared of you. I'm not going to retreat. I'm going to drop my knight forward. Now, if this bishop is captured, White's knight is going to attack the Black Queen. The queen will have to move, and White's going to capture an undefended piece in the centre of the board. This would be a winning position for White. Instead, we have seen a couple of developments. We saw that Black just dropped his knight in the middle here. We have seen a couple of trades, but Hikaru Nakamura, he has to be happy. This pawn is extremely far advanced. It will be joined by its buddy here. These two pawns against one pawn here. Hikaru Nakamura, he's banking everything on this left-hand side of the board, but he's got what he wants, a really imbalanced position with lots of life left in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once again, it's those pawns versus those pieces. And this time, I'm not going to take the side of the pawns. I'm slightly concerned, actually.
You prefer White's pawns to Black's this time?
Yes, I prefer the dynamism of White's pieces, because I just love that knight on the frame is lame. But this one isn't lame, because it has a lovely square to jump into. White's bishop can counter Black's bishop and just put lovely kind of pressure. The only danger that I'm slightly concerned about is that the White king, because you always have to remember about a king, is unprotected. It doesn't have any pieces to surround it. So therefore, I would be slightly concerned with that. But if I keep that in mind every single move, then I should be good. And White should be good.
That's right. And we just see a quick flurry of moves. White is attacking the centre. The chess is all about the centre of the board, especially when lots of pieces remain. White is attacking this pawn 3 times now, and that pawn is only defended twice. So great stuff from Nakamura. He's very much trying to put pressure on Wesley So, hoping that he'll crack. The game is still roughly balanced, but White is the one forcing Black to defend right now.
And once again, we're back to high school. 3 very strong, the popular girls. 3 strong Black pawns, and this time they're really in the center here. They're just the center of everyone's attention.
They are in the center. They are quite menacing. So it will be Hikaru's job to put pressure on them, to make it very unpleasant for Wesley. And of course, Wesley has the momentum on his side, so he really does need to act very dynamically.
Yeah, the fight will revolve around whether that gang can stay together or whether one of them will be captured, one of them will be split up from the others. It's very much a fight about that sense.
I'm getting all these high school Hollywood movies in my head now. Mean Girls, yeah. Can Hikaru Nakamura split up the Mean Girls?
He's trying his best.
Yeah.
He's trying his best. And Wesley So, he doesn't want to be in this situation. Remember, he forced a draw in his last game, maybe because he's feeling a bit tense, a bit nervous. So the longer this one is tense, the longer the game goes on, the more nervous he will become. Nakamura looks focused, leaning forward. I'm liking what he's done. He's been in this situation so many times before.
And we have to remind everyone, it is all or nothing for Hikaru Nakamura. He needs a win in this game if he wants to go to the final. And if he does, we will have tie breaks. So, I mean, I'm rooting for all players, but obviously I'm hoping for tie breaks. Because those are so much fun.
Yeah, we just love to see more chess.
Exactly.
And blitz games, 5 minutes each side. I mean, that's the kind of the peak of excitement. That's the most exciting thing that I know that I just love watching myself.
Yeah. And the chess equivalent to the white knuckle ride has to be the Armageddon, where it's no time added, 5 minutes against 4 minutes. Black will, if Black draws, it will be victory for Black. Oh my God, it gets to 0.08 of a second. Oh.
And in this very second, also Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi started their fourth and final game. Jan Nepomniachtchi needs to win that game if he wants to take it to tiebreaks. So drama going on all over the place here.
Yeah, that's right. In that game, they've only just started 2 or 3 moves being played, but imagine Nepomniachtchi, he's going to throw everything at Carlsen, just like Nakamura is doing here against Wesley So. It is slightly more difficult for Nepomniachtchi, though, with Black. Carlsen rarely loses with White. The only times he ever loses with White is when he's going for the win, when he overstretches and overpresses. Nepomniachtchi, I think, it's going to be a struggle.
It will be a struggle, I agree with you.
Oh, look at the bar after that move.
And yeah, look at Nakamura's face after that move. He just leaned back and frowned. We do see Wesley So going for the White King. Jovanka mentioned it. White's King has no pieces around it, no protection. But maybe this was the wrong moment. Maybe Wesley So just prematurely went for that attack. He's looking up at the ceiling there, maybe just trying to work out whether he was correct in going for it. If we bring the board up, we can see that Wesley So, with his last move, jumping in with the knight, he's trying to get to either this pawn to give a check, or he's going to jump into this unprotected square to give a check. Also, maybe he wants to line up his queen against the White King. But maybe this pawn now is the big weakness. Maybe White has time to just capture this pawn. Maybe he'll throw up a pawn to attack the Black Queen. Instead, he plays his pawn up to attack the Black Knight. Very calm by Nakamura. He doesn't care about the fact his king is a bit naked. It doesn't have any protection around it. He's just attacking the Black Knight, forcing that knight to decide, do you jump forward? Do you jump forward? Or do you go back? Huge decisions for Wesley So. Either way, Nakamura is going to win one of those mean girls, win one of those pawns in the centre of the board. Nakamura doing well, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Nakamura definitely doing well. But Wesley has the ability to mix things up, because we've seen it is not 2 computers playing chess, but 2 humans, and they're vulnerable to all sorts of failings.
That's right. And Wesley just puts his knight in the centre of the board there. A very human move, but again, maybe not the most accurate move. Nakamura, he has a choice now. Do you capture that pawn in the middle of the board? Do you use your rook in the middle there, zoom up and take that pawn? Do you take that same pawn with the knight? Lots of options. I'm surprised Wesley So looks so relaxed. Personally, as Black, I would be thinking, I'm about to lose a pawn.
Oh, wait. And now he started thinking.
That's right. I mean, he's acting confident, maybe. Maybe it's because he knows Hikaru can see him. That being said, I think Wesley, he would have wanted a more controlled game. This one, anything can happen. He's down right now. He's about to lose a pawn. He could still get at that White King, but either way, it's going to be chaotic. He very much wanted a bit more of a relaxing game. Maybe the queen's off the board.
And he is talking to himself here, maybe realizing he's, again, not playing very accurately. And, I mean, imagine if he actually loses this game. He's been... he's had so many chances today and then ending up in tiebreaks. I guess that would make Hikaru Nakamura the big favourite.
Yes, it would make Hikaru the absolute big favourite, you know, especially because he's been riding his luck. Every time I think, OK, he's down and out. But no, he comes back up and finds a resource. So absolutely some great stuff.
I'm thinking really hard here.
Yeah, I think maybe he's feeling I mean, it's just a momentous occasion, this one game. It's do or die time, and I think he's feeling the pressure. Hikaru, when he's feeling super confident, he'll just play a move and he'll worry about the consequences later.
But it's a big decision to take the pawn because, you know, we did mention it before, the White King is vulnerable. It has no protection, and Black will basically start playing like a madman to open up the right-hand side of the board. So that will be like pushing those pawns forward, anything to hunt down that king. So it's OK, so he has Wow, he's played a little move that I wasn't expecting rather, and he has attacked the queen by pushing the pawn. So, yeah, interesting.
Very strange move. I think White had two great options. White could have captured that pawn in the middle of the board. White could also have just maybe developed his bishop as well if he was feeling a bit more modest. If we bring the analysis board up, we see that Hikaru Nakamura, maybe he's setting a trap for Wesley So. Wesley So now, his queen is attacked. He shuffles it across to safety. If he had captured this pawn, this would have been a huge mistake. White would take this pawn with his knight, lining up something against the black king. The black king would move, and White would have another. We call this a skewer. The queen would be attacked, the rook would be attacked behind it. Instead, we see a flurry of moves. Maybe we catch up with the game. We see Wesley So avoided that trick, and we see lots and lots of trades. The queens are about to leave the board now. But I'm not sure, maybe Nakamura, he's playing safety first chess when he shouldn't be doing this. I don't understand why Wesley So can't just trade off the queens now in the middle of the board. The queens will leave the board. Sooner or later, Black's going to win the pawn back.
And it's happening. And it's happening. The queens are off, and I fully expect that Black will start to munch on some pawns. Ooh.
We're seeing Nakamura, he's sacrificed his knight in the middle of the board. Black's rook is attacking that knight in the middle. But Nakamura, he's gambling. It's all about that pawn now, that pawn that's just advanced on the top of the board, that White, the most furthest advanced pawn. Nakamura, he's gambling everything on that pawn. If Wesley can stop it, then the game will be a draw, at the very least for Black. Oh, this one's tense.
This is tense, you know, because my instinct reacted, there is a knight that can be taken. Let me take it.
That's right. And if we jump into the position, Wesley So, he's going to have a think here because this is so complicated. That wasn't meant to be a pun. It is so complicated. We can see maybe if we bring up the board, Black can capture a free knight here in the middle. It looks like Black's just winning a knight. But White is going to maybe either advance this pawn, either capture this pawn, or a very cool move.
And he's done it.
Oh, we're going to see it happen.
We're going to see it on the board. I think that was the only move. I think he had to take that knight. Otherwise, White was just going to be winning with those far advanced pawns on the left-hand side.
Yeah, can White force a pawn home now? We see that actually the computer Stockfish says there's only one move for White to keep the balance. Every other move is losing now for White. Maybe this bishop move is so hard for a human to find this. To cover this square, meaning that the black rook cannot drop behind the pawns. White is still going to try and promote, still going to try to make this pawn a queen, but this is so hard for Nakamura to find. Will he find this bishop move?
Oh, OK, so that's the one move we are looking for now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And every other move loses. We see the evaluation there. The bishop forward.
And look at Hikaru. Hikaru looks stressed. He thinks, oh, my God, I've made a mistake.
That's right.
Wow. So we are looking for the bishop to the rink of the board here.
Yes, right to the edge of the board. The bishop needs to develop, and it needs to get going.
And Hikaru thinking for 1 minute now, can he find this bishop move? That's all we're wondering about right now.
The problem is, this bishop move, even if he finds it, the position is still equal, the position is still level. Wesley So, if he's accurate, should be able to guide the game towards a draw, which is enough for him to qualify for the final. Nakamura, he had so many opportunities. He just rushed it. He had 3 or 4 good moves. He sped down this line. He played his last 5-6 moves very quickly.
Oh, he didn't
find it. Oh, look, the bar.
So now Wesley is winning, and Wesley retreats. But now the knight can come. Now the knight can come and attack the pawn. This is the point.
That's right. Nakamura, he's trying to use his rook to zoom up to the end of the board to help his pawn, that white pawn at the top. He's going to try and get it to the end, but Black's knight can just drop back and take that pawn off the board. Black is winning now if he retreats his knight. We see the Stockfish, the computer evaluation. Black has 2 winning moves. Everything else loses. He has to retreat his knight right now.
And he's done it, and he has retreated the knight. He's to attack the pawn, and Hikaru shaking his head. Oops. And, yeah.
I think he probably saw that position 7 or 8 moves ago. It's just he didn't see that the knight could retreat. Backwards knight moves, they're the hardest moves to see.
Wait.
Wesley So showing off now, sacrificing his knight. He's about to win.
Yes.
We're going to see Black's rook capture that white bishop. Black's rook gave a double attack.
And it's all over for Hikaru.
Oh.
Hikaru is knocked out. Actually, Wesley So is completely winning here, but he knows a draw is enough. Wesley So takes the draw and moves on to the final.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. Well, first of all, We have the first finalist ready. It is Wesley So, the American. He has beaten his American rival, Hikaru Nakamura, in the semi-final. And he is now ready for the final. And what a way to do it, Jovanka.
Yeah, what a way to do it. You know, it looked like he was on the edge. Hikaru was going to pull it back. But, wow, you know, with some accurate calculation, he saw everything. And, yeah, wow, he was deserved victor.
Deserved victor. And are you a little surprised, David, that Wesley So won this semi-final match?
I'm maybe not surprised by the result because I think it was 50-50 Nakamura, So they're both so strong. I'm surprised in the style he did it so convincingly, never really in trouble. And today he could have won by a huge margin. He was winning the first two games. He was winning the last game in the final position. Wesley So, I mean, he cruised to the final there. Impressive performance.
So Wesley So ready for the Skilling Open final. Do you think he will come in there tomorrow, Jovanka, just full of self-confidence after beating such a great player that Hikaru Nakamura is?
Yes, he has every reason to be happy because he's there playing for the final, you know, and he'll be facing, who knows, actually.
Yeah, who knows? It will be Magnus Carlsen or Nepomniachtchi, who knows?
Yes, exactly. So he'll be absolutely ecstatic because that is what every player dreams about, going to the final.
All right. We actually have Wesley So now joining us. Wesley So, congratulations so much on going to the Skilling Open final.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. I'm still very bewildered with what happened in the last game because I was fighting for my life and I was trying to generate some counterplay. But then he just blundered his knight in the end. So I'm still not sure what happened there.
What has this day been like for you, Wesley? Because you've been in winning positions as far as we can see in many games here, and then it has ended in draws all the way here.
Yeah, that's very confusing day. I think Hikaru and I weren't playing well. Well, he obviously has to try to win in all the games, while I just have to play it safe. So in that case, I have nothing to lose because it doesn't really matter whether I lose by 2.5 or whether I lose by 3-0. So I just wanted to play my game, and yeah, not winning the first game was very disheartening, of course.
So Wesley, can you talk us through that emotional journey? You mentioned nearly winning the first game, you nearly won the second one as well. How were you feeling, especially as the last game approached?
Yeah, that's true. Today has been a very confusing day. Honestly, I have no idea what's happening in the end. Yeah, I think taking the breather on game 3 was a big help for me. But yeah, in general, in these events, you want to try to forget the last game right away, whatever happens, and move on. Try to take each game as if it's the very first round. But it's not always easy, and I think Hikaru and I are very confused already what's happening in the end. But yeah, I just tried to move on and play better. But it's always very tricky because Hikaru is a very tactical and very slippery, and he makes use of all his chances, and he never gives up. He has this tremendous fighting spirit, so he'll just keep fighting on until he doesn't have any chances left. So when we get down to a minute or 2 minutes on the clock, he plays just much better, while I'll simply panic with very little time. But yeah, I don't know. It's been very confusing.
So Wesley, what has kept you motivated during this tournament?
During this tournament? Well, first of all, I have nothing to lose, right? Because after my first game with Timur, I realized I probably should be out of the tournament already. So I have nothing to lose. I just give my best and play hard every game, try to get comfortable positions. Motivation really is just to play well. Yeah, play some good chess.
And Wesley, we still don't know who you will face in the final. Do you sort of have someone you hope that will win this semi-final match between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen?
Let's see. Ian has to draw, yeah? I mean, has to win the last game with black.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem very likely, looking at the position. What do I hope? Yeah, I guess you'll always face Magnus every single time in the finals. Doesn't matter what tournament.
And you did actually beat him. We know that very well in the World Championship in Fischer Random Chess. So do you feel confidence if it is Magnus Carlsen you will face?
Yeah, if we play chess 960, yeah, I feel very confident.
All right, Wesley. Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, but I mean, chess and chess 960 are just two completely different games because Magnus knows already the typical plans and typical setups and the typical maneuvers in basically every single opening.
All right. Well, are you feeling fired up and looking forward to the finals in the Skilling Open?
Yeah, I'm just very happy to be here. I'm still very happy to be here. Totally didn't expect it. It's always a great honor to face Magnus in the match, especially in the finals. I think the last time I played in the Magnus Chess Tour was back in July. And I faced Magnus right away in the quarterfinals. So it was a very unlucky pairing, and I didn't move on. But it's a great honor and a great pleasure to face powerful opponents like Magnus, Carlsen, and Hikaru Nakamura. So I hope to be able to put up a good fight, put up a worthy fight with interesting games, and hopefully I can trade blows with Magnus.
All right, Wesley.
Can I ask one more question? So have your cats been watching the games?
Yes. Zanzibar.
Zanzibar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zanzibar. Yeah, definitely. I think he's gotten used to it. I sometimes leave the door open for him so he can come in and out, but he doesn't like it when the doors are closed. But I think right now I've been playing for a week. I think he's gotten used to it. But he enjoys playing chess. He likes playing chess, and then the very minute I open the door, he comes right in and checks everything that's happening. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Wesley, say hi to Zanzibar from us, and good luck in the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much. Be exciting.
Thank you, Wesley. All right, Wesley So is ready for the finals. He was very much talking about facing Magnus Carlsen. He might face Jan Nepomniachtchi. This game is not over. Jan Nepomniachtchi has to win this fourth game to take it to tiebreaks. And just judging by the bar, David, it looks like he's quite good in this position.
That's right. I really like Black's position, to be honest. We have just seen the queens leave the board just on that last turn. And actually, it's Magnus Carlsen this time who's maybe allowing just the momentum to turn against him. In this position, just a very normal position. Wesley So, he said himself, he thinks Black probably doesn't have too many winning chances. If Magnus Carlsen just sits still, just maybe moves his rook, moves his bishop, doesn't do anything, it's very hard for Black to break out. Black hasn't got much space. His pawns are very, well, they're not far advanced at all. He's very cramped. Instead, Magnus allowed a trade and allowed this pawn to capture. Doubled pawns, normally quite controversial, but Black controls all of the central squares now. More importantly, his bishop is unleashed. And we saw a queen trade. Normally, this favours Magnus, the endgame expert, but in this position, suddenly, Black jumps out with his bishop. Black's bishop is a great piece. This other bishop is also a great piece. Two fantastic bishops there. I love Black's position. I like these doubled pawns actually controlling the centre. Lots of tension. Magnus is an endgame expert, but Nepomniachtchi doing well.
Yeah, I agree with you there, David. Magnus Nepomniachtchi is doing very well, and I really do love those action happening on the left-hand side of the board where that rook is bearing down. It's basically every Sicilian player's dream.
That's right, and White just advancing his pawn there slightly. This is a pawn sacrificed by White, by Magnus Carlsen. Black can now capture that knight on the left side of the board with his bishop. That being said, Black's bishop is so strong in the middle, it's probably best to leave it there for now. Personally, I think maybe Nepomniachtchi, he didn't need to rush into the centre with his bishop. He had plenty of options. Maybe now Magnus Carlsen...
Oh, he's done it. He's taken it. He has gone for material. Perhaps it's just too tempting, because why not be a pawn up against Magnus Carlsen and make him suffer?
And the bar shifts over to Magnus' side with these moves.
Yeah, I think that was maybe just a bit of a greedy decision by Nepomniachtchi. He's won a pawn temporarily, but more importantly, he's just wasted 3 moves with his bishop to take that pawn. Now we see Magnus bring his rook across the left side. He's targeting a black pawn along that line. Great play by Magnus Carlsen. It shows sometimes being materialistic is not the best thing, especially if it's just a pawn. White's pieces have suddenly improved a lot. White's bishops are soon going to join the action. White's rooks are great.
Yeah.
Black's a pawn up, but the trend has changed.
You have to also remember that the pawn that is the extra pawn is actually one of the double pawns as well. And the double pawns can, in certain situations, count as just basically one big pawn.
That's right. So black is a pawn up, but doubled pawns, so not a huge advantage. Meanwhile, I like bishops, especially the positions starting to open up. Black's bishop retreating there to its start square. It's always depressing if you have to retreat your pieces, and we see the bar does swing slightly towards Magnus Carlsen's side. I think we joined it and maybe we cursed him.
Yeah.
The commentator's curse.
Oh, and we want tie breaks.
We do want tie breaks. And what more spectacular tie break than having Magnus Carlsen fight for his life against Ian Nepomniachtchi? That would be just awesome.
That would be fantastic.
Magnus is showing why he's world champion. Just look at how he's commanding the position. His rooks are on open lines. This bishop that is on the right-hand side, dark square bishop, is getting ready to mobilize. And yeah, absolutely everything working together.
Well, the only thing I know about Magnus, perhaps maybe his only weakness, is that he just loves winning so much. And it almost seems, especially in situations where like this, where every other chess player would just go for the draw, just get that draw, just get to the final. It seems he loves in these situations to just tell everyone, no, I'm going to go for the win and I'm going to be risky.
Yeah, it's occasionally weakness. Mostly it's a strength.
Yeah.
It allows him to kind of assert his dominance over everyone else. That's why he's the top dog, the big boss. But yeah, I think in this position, if he has a chance to just end the match now, to end the game, he'd probably take it. But yeah, he would definitely have taken this position before the game because White is the one in control. Actually, maybe if we bring up the board, we can see why White is doing well. This bishop now doing nothing at the edge of the board. Personally, I would maybe just bring it back, attack this pawn. This pawn is only defended by Black's knight. Instead, he improves his rooks. These rooks are going to team up, double up against this weakness. Then the bishop's going to come back and take this pawn. All of White's pieces are very nicely placed. Black's king in the middle, not so great. Black's rook doing nothing out here. Black's bishop, very badly placed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is dream time for Magnus.
This is definitely dream time. I really like the way he's moved this rook rather than rushing with the bishop, because just moving the rook forward, there's certain traps in the air. Like if the knight tries to jump forward, then the rook could be in danger of getting trapped. This is the black rook.
Yeah, that's right. So Black has to decide what to do, how to get his rook into the game. Maybe he could try and jump forward with that knight. Maybe if we get the board to show you what Jovanka means there with a couple of traps, Black could try and bring his knight forward, but White's bishop would bring itself back to the start line to attack that black rook.
Moving the knight forward isn't the best move right now, but it's definitely in the air. And I just love this whole idea that this rook is potentially vulnerable on that dark square.
That's right. So we see the Stockfish evaluation, the computer evaluation, the moves just above the board there on the top right-hand side of the screen. Black does have a few moves. All of them, though, even the best moves, do give a small advantage for White. Remember, though, that Magnus Carlsen does only need a draw, so any advantage is enough for him. Any advantage, it just means that he'll be able to kind of bully Nepomniachtchi into more trades, into slowly hoovering everything off the board. We saw it in their last game yesterday. All the pawns disappeared, all the pieces disappeared. Magnus Carlsen, he's going to be thinking about how he can just safely, without any risk at all, guide this game towards a draw.
Yeah.
Nepomniachtchi been thinking for 2 minutes now, and well, Magnus Carlsen still has less time on the clock, but Nepomniachtchi made his move. What happened? Oh, and the bar shifts more over to Magnus.
That's right, and we see that in that position, Black did castle his king. So we've talked about that move before, castling, bringing your king across 2 squares and the rook over 2 squares. That's always allowed as long as your king hasn't moved and your rook hasn't moved, and as long as you're not castling through an attacked square. So even though this is move 23, it's not too late to castle. Black brought his king to safety, but actually maybe it wasn't good to bring the king to safety. The king would never have been attacked there because White doesn't have a queen. So Black did castle, bringing his king further away from the centre. Maybe not a good idea. And as we mentioned, White's bishop just drops back. eyeing up a pawn along that diagonal.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a tweet from Tim Wall, who believes that this pawn sacrifice by Magnus Carlsen against Nepo could be a masterstroke to win Game 4 and the Skilling Open semi-finals. And yeah, if you do want to join in the conversation and the fun and perhaps get featured on the show, then please do tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps.
I definitely think Jan Nepomniachtchi needs some social media energy if he's going to be able to fight back here. And I can't help but remembering all the games we have been commentating here for 7 days now, 6 days, 7 days. And so many of them has just been, oh, I think Magnus can take this draw, and then sudden changes all the time. Winning, losing.
Well, the players have been very unpredictable. That's what I can say.
Extremely unpredictable, I have to say. And it's probably the rapid chess. I mean, time obviously plays a role here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the factors. This is why this is not computer chess. This is human chess. People make mistakes. People play brilliant moves. People miss things. And, you know, it's just a joy to watch.
Yeah, and that's why Magnus Carlsen's the world champion. He sees these mistakes coming. He can predict what types of mistakes his opponents will make. He knows he doesn't play perfect chess himself. Nobody plays perfect chess, but he knows what his opponents are going to do in advance. Maybe he saw that pawn sacrifice that the tweet mentioned, that Tim Wall's tweet mentioned. Magnus will have seen that coming a mile away. He would have said, OK, Nepomniachtchi, he's going to try and grab that pawn, but then the game's going to turn around. And Magnus Carlsen, we've seen him up against it so many times in worse positions, losing positions. He somehow knows that his opponents aren't going to finish him off. He's just so tenacious, so hard to beat. That's why he's the world champion.
And you also have to remember that Stockfish really likes this position, Stockfish being the engine, but Magnus is actually a pawn down.
Yeah.
So when the computer is saying that, you know, that your position is slightly better and you're a pawn down, then you know you have a good position in terms of human chess.
That's right. And White's last move with that bishop dropping it back is threatening to win the pawn back. If White wins that pawn back, he'll never lose the game. Just completely takes away the risk. We mentioned those doubled pawns for Black. Those pawns are still doubled in the centre. And Black's last move, ambitious. This shows, OK, the bar has switched towards White's side. This shows Nepomniachtchi he's gambling now. He knows that last move isn't a good move, but he can't let the game fizzle out into a draw. He needs to take risk.
Yeah.
So he's playing moves that aren't the best, but maybe create the most tension and create some traps for Magnus Carlsen.
And obviously, I mean, OK, taking these risky moves, it does force Magnus Carlsen to think on his time and use that clock and perhaps make some mistakes.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Magnus is that he's so objective about it because he looked at the position and said, well, ultimately, you're not threatening anything. So I'm just going to grab off that pawn with the bishop. But OK, things are going to start heating up now.
That's right. We've seen a couple of pawns leave the board. White's just retreated with his bishop in the centre there. Very calm move by Magnus Carlsen. Actually, it just shows he was thinking in Nepomniachtchi's time. I think he was actually inside Nepomniachtchi's mind because I would never have predicted those last three moves by Black. Magnus Carlsen, he reacted immediately. It means he knew exactly what Nepomniachtchi's going to do. He knows his opponents so well. He knows exactly how they think. Imagine facing someone who can read your thoughts, read your mind. It's depressing.
Crash course in psychology. Oh, you're OK, so the pawn has marched forward and, wow, so calmly captured by Magnus Carlsen. But now the king, the white king, is opposite the black rook. And so if the knight moves anywhere, there will be something that we call a discovered check.
That's right. So if we bring the board up, we can see Nepomniachtchi, he's just discovering, kind of having a think about how to make the most of this discover check. Once the knight moves, this will be check against the black king. He just has too much choice, though. Where do you bring the knight? Do you move it this way to attack the bishop? Do you take this pawn back? He has captured the pawn. Magnus Carlsen, he's spent about 5 seconds in total in his last 5 moves.
Wow.
So fast.
That must be, I mean, talking about psychology, again, that must be so frustrating for Jan Nepomniachtchi, just taking these very risky moves, trying to push for that win, and then Magnus Carlsen was like, oh, OK. I see what you do. I have a plan.
That's right, and the more pieces leave the board, the more pawns leave the board, the closer Magnus Carlsen is.
Yes.
3-minute time advantage now as well.
Yeah, and also Nepomniachtchi is worse on the board because suddenly those two bishops have come alive. And Nepomniachtchi desperately trying to create threats by retreating the knight to attack the white bishop.
And you see it on his face, he's almost about to give up. Do you have some more fighting spirit in you, Jan Nepomniachtchi? Then this is the time.
He did win against Magnus Carlsen with a mouse slip in the first game of the whole Skilling Open.
Right.
Maybe that's his best chance now, unfortunately.
Imagine if that actually decided this. Wow, the semi-final. Another mouse slip. Well, actually, the bar shifts back to center now.
Yeah, so the position becomes a little bit more level with more pieces that have been traded off. In light of the match situation, you saw Magnus trade one of his advantages, which was the bishop pair, for simplicity. So he's gotten rid of some pieces. And now you can see that his rook and the bishop, they have got their eye on the pawn on the left-hand side of the board. And still more trades are probably going to happen.
That's right. So Magnus, again, knowing that there were better moves in the position, but in this situation, it's better to play fast moves that guide the game towards a draw. He doesn't need to try to win. Jovanka mentioned his last move, attacking this pawn, bishop lining up on this pawn, rook lining up on this pawn. Nepomniachtchi defending across the line here, defending laterally, indirectly defending this pawn. But Magnus has the chance. He can trade rooks now if he wants to. He can just keep the tension. He can just also bring his rook to attack the black king indirectly. Lots of choice. Nepomniachtchi very much reacting to what Magnus does. I think he can guide this game towards a draw if that's what he wants. 2-minute time advantage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a tweet from Jesse Rankins who basically sums up the situation. The most important reminder from Magnus and Ian's last game: don't get greedy, carefully improve your pieces and play positional chess. So, yeah, it just sums it up there beautifully. Magnus likes to play with all his pieces and he just did it beautifully. Doesn't matter about material, just get every piece of the every army. I'll get there.
We know what you mean.
Every piece working.
Well, we see Magnus thinking, do you think this is so comfortable for him now that his mind maybe is shifting towards that final that will be played tomorrow?
No, I don't think Magnus is the type of guy who loses focus and loses concentration. Just have a look at him in the webcam. He looks absolutely present in the game. I don't think it's even dawned on him about the final. He just wants to play the best chess.
Yeah, that's right. I think the only thing making him pause right now is that he has a lot of options and he's just trying to figure out the quickest way to force the draw. There we see, again, the bar zooms slightly back towards the middle, but that just means that Magnus Carlsen, he's one step away now. Well, he's one step closer to trading off all those pieces. He's offering another trade with his rook. Both of White's rooks now are looking at the same black rook, but either way, Black's going to have to make a decision about what to do there, and Black will not be able to keep that rook on the board. We're just inching closer to safety for Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, he has to try to maintain itself on that line.
So we know Jan Nepomniachtchi needs to keep pieces on the board if he wants to somehow find a win in this position. But do you think is there any way he can avoid trading those rooks now?
I can't see one for you, Jovanka.
No, actually, no, I can't see any.
And is that what he is thinking about now, what he is looking at? Is there any way I can keep my rooks on the board here?
Yeah, it must be. He's got two options, or maybe three options. He can, if we bring the board up, he'll be deciding upon whether to just defend this rook, allow this rook to be captured on this square, or maybe he can capture this one, or this guy. All of them, I think, should lead towards a draw. But the problem is none of those options leave enough tension. They don't set any tricks for Magnus Carlsen. The position is so simple. Magnus Carlsen is just going to start hoovering pawns off the board. This pawn will soon disappear off the board. These two might get traded. Every pawn that leaves the board is close to the board.
Yeah, and one thing that I can see that could be potentially quite dangerous is if Black were to remove the rook on the left-hand side and try to grab that pawn that suddenly became free, then the bishop and the king are on the same line, so they are very, very, very vulnerable to a kind of a pin, something that we call a pin.
So you mean if Black captures this pawn?
Yes.
Okay. And then we would see a trade on this square. Yes. And as Jovanka mentioned, a pin and you win. This bishop cannot move. The rook can defend it, but then this bishop is doomed.
Exactly. So This is the big problem in the position. Okay, so we've had a few moves. If you go back,
that's right. So we have seen a couple of moves being played. Black's just blockaded a pawn now with his bishop. Yeah, I think this one still very much in the realms of a draw. But Nepomniachtchi just trying to hope that Magnus gets nervous. He traded rooks on the square. The bishop just blocks. Very safe stuff. This pawn is a strength right now, but maybe it'll become a weakness on a good day for Nepomniachtchi. I think Magnus here, he'll just be deciding, do you push a pawn forward? Do you try and trade off more pawns, try and get at this guy? Lots of options here for Magnus. Not enough pawns left on the board.
And it is Magnus thinking for 1 minute now. I'm wondering if his head is all on the board now. I heard chess players say that, you know, and you said it as well. The head starts shifting towards dinner, music.
That's true. that is true. But in just language, he looks like he is in focus mode. He knows what he has to do, and he's going to do it. So that's what... although he's blinking a lot.
Yeah.
So perhaps he's trying to keep himself awake.
Yeah, you can at least hope for a miracle.
What happened here with the bar?
I think Nepomniachtchi is taking risks now to try and win.
Huge ones, probably.
Big risks, that's right. We see Magnus Carlsen's last move, a very, very clever move. If we bring the board up, we can see Magnus Carlsen, he's set a trap as well. If black gets greedy, it looks like white has blundered a pawn, left this pawn undefended. We will see a double attack. The bishop will attack the king with check and take the rook next move. Meanwhile, Magnus, he's just going to drop his bishop into the square. He's going to try maybe and remove the opponent's bishop. Once this bishop disappears, white's pawn is going to run to the end and make a new queen. So very clever by Magnus Carlsen. Maybe he's actually winning right now.
Yeah. He can even drop his rook with that after that bishop check. He can drop his rook all the way up and try and attack the bishop that way. So, yeah.
Well, and Nepomniachtchi now less than 2 minutes on the clock as he is still trying so hard to push for a win or even push Magnus to do a blunder. But I guess he is very fast losing hope here now.
Yeah, that's right. I think actually it's time to just, well, I don't know if he can take a draw. Yeah, that's right. I think actually it's time to just, well, I don't know if he can take a draw anymore as black, but it is time to just say, okay, you played well, Magnus. I couldn't quite get you today.
And you see it in his face. He looks completely dejected. This is a...
That's right, and black just retreats.
Oh, it has ended. Has it?
Yes.
They agreed to draw, it looks like.
It certainly looks like it. He shook his head and he left the room. And the game has ended in a draw.
The game has ended in a draw. Jan Nepomniachtchi is leaving the Skilling Open. He's leaving the room, and we have the two finalists ready. It is world champion Magnus Carlsen, and he will face Wesley Carlsen tomorrow. Exciting.
It is exciting. Absolutely, he is a classic act. You know, even if he says he doesn't feel so motivated or doesn't feel so pumped up, he is still putting everyone away.
Yes.
And actually, we have a tweet from Leon Watson who says he's the GOAT, Armenian Grandmaster Grant Melkerman says. So, absolutely. You know, in tennis, there's Federer, Djokovic and Nadal. And here we have Carlsen.
Here we have Magnus Carlsen. But definitely Wesley So coming in full of confidence will try to put him off, I guess, in the start here.
That's right. I think Wesley's best bet is to just kind of throw Magnus off, especially at the beginning. Magnus, he's been a bit of a slow starter. If Wesley starts strong, he's very hard to beat. Hikaru couldn't come back against Wesley. That being said, Carlsen, he's made an art form out of winning when he's not at his best. It's going to be so fun to watch, and I think both players will be peaking at exactly the right time.
Fantastic. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had 7 days of the Skilling Open, the beginning of the Champions Chess Tour. 16 players became 8 in the quarterfinals. We then had 4 players in the semi-finals: Magnus Carlsen, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura. And we now know the final will consist of Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So, Norway against the US. And who will be the winner? Well, we will know in 2 days, because the final, Jovanka, is played just like the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, which means
that we're going to see some fast action chess, and it'll be, each match consists of 4 rapid games, and there'll be 2 matches. So, and if things are tied, it's going to go to tie breaks, and I can't wait.
I know. So true. Important first day, we know that now, David. Who do you think will start out strongest tomorrow?
Ooh, it's so hard to call. Magnus Carlsen, a bit of a slow starter, but Wesley So as well. He's maybe less experienced in these big finals when huge money's on the line. Maybe he'll take a couple of draws at the beginning just to warm up into the match. If that happens, I think Magnus will win the first day.
Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So. It is the final in the Skilling Open. We are back tomorrow, starting out with the final in the first final in the Champions Chess Tour. It is the final in the Skilling Open. World champion Magnus Carlsen against Wesley So. All right, we're going to have some fun in the studio tomorrow as well, no doubt about it. We really appreciate you've been with us tonight, and then we hope to see you again tomorrow for the Skilling Open finals. Bye.